The first thing the sky gave us was a box of bread. Not a prophecy, not a sword, not a glowing dragon egg or any of the legendary nonsense people expected after the world folded itself into a survival game. Just a floating blue window, a calm bell sound, and one line that made every stomach in the ruined city growl at the same time. Daily login reward available. I was sitting under a cracked bus shelter with rain leaking through the roof, trying to pretend my jacket was a blanket. Around me, hundreds of people stared at the same message. Then the blue windows opened, and loaves of bread dropped into their hands like the sky had suddenly become a bakery with no sense of timing. People cried, people laughed, some people ate so fast they choked. One guy kissed his bread like it had saved his marriage. I didn't claim mine. The window hovered in front of me, gentle and bright. Day 1 reward, bread. Claim now. My thumb floated over the button because I was starving too. My mouth was dry. My stomach felt like a fist squeezing a sponge. But before I touched it, I saw the smaller line below the button, so faint I almost missed it. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. That one sentence hit me harder than hunger. Everyone else saw free food. I saw a question the system did not explain. May combine did not sound like a warning. It sounded like a door. And when a door appears in a nightmare, you do not kick it open just because everyone else is running toward the snack table. You watch the hinges, you test the frame, you ask why it exists. So I closed the window. The bread vanished before it reached my hand. The man beside me stared like I had thrown money into a fire. Dylan, are you stupid? That was Logan. He had known me for about 10 minutes, which was apparently enough time to decide my entire personality. He was tall, loud, and already acting like the ruined city had elected him captain because he shouted the most. He tore off half his bread with his teeth and talked with his mouth full. You know there's no grocery store anymore, right? I noticed, I said. Then claim it. I'm saving it. For what, dessert? A few people laughed. That laugh followed me for the next year. Sometimes it was cruel, sometimes it was confused, sometimes it came from people who thought they were being kind, but it always had the same shape. Poor Dylan, hungry Dylan, the guy who found the only free food in the apocalypse and decided to role-play as a genius. By day 2, everyone had knives. The reward appeared at dawn while fog crawled between abandoned cars. People clicked claims so fast it sounded like rain on glass. Short knives dropped into palms. Cheap steel, black handles, enough to stab a goblin if you were brave or desperate. The city became louder right away. People swung their knives at street signs. They posed on wrecked cars. Logan carved his name into a bus window like he had discovered civilization. I did not claim mine. Day 2 reward, survival knife. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. Claim now. I closed it again. That morning a pack of horned rats came out of the subway entrance and chased us through the financial district. I had no knife, no bread, and no potion. So I survived the way ordinary people survive when they are standing next to idiots with weapons. I ran behind Logan. Not because I trusted him, because Logan had announced 3 times that he was the strongest person there. The rats believed him, or maybe they just chased the loudest food. While he screamed and slashed wildly, I slid under a delivery truck, crawled through oily water, and came out behind the pack. Then I kicked a broken hubcap down the stairs. It clattered like a metal drum. The rats turned toward the sound. Logan escaped with a bite on his ankle and a new hatred for me. I escaped with 2 rat cores, because one of the rats broke its neck chasing the hubcap, and another got stuck under a vending machine I pushed at the right moment. The system paid me 3 copper shards and 1 line of experience. It was not much, but it was mine. Not a gift, not a button, mine. By day 3, everyone had potions. Red liquid shimmered in tiny glass bottles, and the whole shelter smelled like cherry cough syrup. Someone with a bruised rib drank one and stood straight. Someone with a cut hand poured a drop on the wound and watched the skin pull shut. People cheered so loudly that monsters on the next block heard and came sniffing. I stared at my own window. Day 3 reward, minor healing potion. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. Claim now. My throat burned. I had eaten half a stale protein bar the night before, traded from a woman for fixing the hinge on a storage room. My hands shook. The smart choice, the normal choice, the human choice was to claim the potion, sell it, drink it, or save it. I closed the window. Sarah watched me do it. She was one of the few people who did not immediately call me stupid. She had taken over the old pharmacy because she knew how to organize shelves and talk angry people into standing in lines. She wore fingerless gloves, kept a metal bat behind the counter, and had the kind of calm voice that made panic embarrassed to exist. "You're really going to keep doing that?" she asked. until the system tells me I'm wrong. Systems don't apologize. Neither do hungry people. She studied me, then tossed me a strip of dried meat. I'm not giving charity. You'll owe me a favor. I'm good at favors. You're good at looking like you're about to fall over. That too. I ate the meat slowly, even though my body wanted to inhale it. That was lesson 1 of my streak. Never let hunger make decisions faster than your brain can regret them. The first week was humiliation with sound effects. Every dawn the others opened their gifts. Day 4 gave water flasks. Day 5 gave basic shoes. Day 6 gave a roll of bandages. Day 7 gave random skill boxes, and that was when the camp split into winners and background characters. Skill boxes exploded with colored light. One man got fire spark, another got stone skin, someone got dash step and ran face first into a wall. Logan opened his box on top of a truck so everyone could see him. He received heavy strike, a skill that doubled the force of one attack every 30 seconds. He swung his knife at a parking meter and bent it sideways. Everyone clapped. Then they looked at me. My Day 7 window floated quietly. Day 7 reward, random skill box. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. Claim now. I closed it. The silence lasted 1 full second before Logan started laughing so hard he had to sit down. That night he told everyone I had invented the first useless build in human history. The no food, no weapon, no skill build. He called me the unpaid beta tester of suffering. People repeated it because jokes are easier than thinking. Even Sarah sighed when she saw me digging through trash cans behind a diner. But while Logan showed off heavy strike, I learned the shape of the new world. Monsters spawned around patterns. The horned rats always came from dark subway entrances. Moss dogs avoided salt. Goblins loved shiny objects but hated loud whistles. Slime puddles dissolved leather, ignored glass, and slowed down when sprinkled with powdered concrete. Every creature had a habit. Every habit had a handle. I had no weapon, so I made the city my weapon. I tied fishing line between 2 parking meters and lured goblins into it with coins. I hung cans from alley fire escapes and made noise traps. I found a janitor closet full of cleaning powder and used it to blind a moss dog long enough for an elevator door to crush it. I slept in a billboard frame because rats could not climb smooth steel. I traded information for scraps, favors for water, directions for half-broken gear. People laughed when I refused the daily rewards, but they stopped laughing when they needed safe routes. By day 10, the first boss appeared in the mall. It was a butcher ogre with a refrigerator door as a shield and a meat hook as long as a lamppost. It smashed through the glass entrance, roared at the food court, and made every brave person remember an important appointment somewhere else. The system marked it with a red symbol. Local boss detected. Defeat reward available. Logan gathered 15 fighters, all armed with knives, random skills, and the confidence of people who had never fought anything taller than a vending machine. He told me to stay back because my invisible build would scare the ogre too much. I stayed back. Then, while they charged through the main entrance and got scattered like bowling pins, I climbed to the second-floor railing with a backpack full of free samples from a camping store. The ogre chased Logan into the central fountain. Heavy strike slammed into its knee and did almost nothing. The ogre raised the meat hook, and for 1 clean second, Logan's face became completely honest. No jokes. No pride, just fear. I threw a bottle of lighter fluid into the fountain. Then I threw a flare. The fountain ignited because the system apparently respected dramatic timing. Fire climbed the water like it had been waiting for permission. The ogre stumbled back, confused, and its refrigerator shield hit the wet tile. I had already loosened the decorative chandelier above the atrium. 1 tug on the rope, and 300 pounds of fake crystal came down like judgment wearing discount jewelry. It crushed the ogre's neck. The mall shook. The fighters stared. I landed on a kiosk roof, rolled badly, hurt my shoulder, and tried not to scream because cool people do not scream after chandelier murder. The system gave everyone involved experience. Logan got the boss chest because he had dealt the most damage with heavy strike. I got a smaller contribution reward and 3 messages. Improvised kill confirmed. Environmental damage bonus. Title progress trap maker. Logan limped over with blood on his cheek and anger in his eyes. You almost killed us. I almost saved you. You set the fountain on fire. It improved the atmosphere. He wanted to hit me, I could see it, but there were too many people watching, and too many of them had just realized I was not useless. That made him angrier than if I had been. After that, the camp divided into 2 groups, people who still mocked me, and people who mocked me less loudly while asking for maps. By day 30, my unclaimed reward window had become heavy. Not physically, it still floated like blue glass, but when it appeared every morning, I felt pressure behind my eyes, like the system was stacking invisible bricks in the air. The reward list no longer fit on one screen. Red knife, potion, water flask, shoes, bandages, skill box, copper pouch, torch, rope, stamina pill, armor patch, sharpening kit, random stat bead, monster bait, low-grade mana stone, and on and on. At the bottom, the same line remained. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. I had survived 30 days without touching any of it. Survived was a generous word. I was thinner, dirtier, and meaner in the way hunger makes people mean. I knew how many calories were in a stolen can of peaches. I knew which monsters tasted horrible but would not poison you. I knew pride was heavy, and when you are climbing a fire escape with a slime behind you, you drop heavy things. But I was also stronger. Not strong like Logan, who could break a door with one swing. Strong like a wire stretched across an alley, quiet until something ran into it. I had unlocked Trapmaker on day 18 by dropping a billboard sign on a pack of goblins. At rank 1, it let me see weak points in objects for 3 seconds after touching them. Cracks in concrete glowed. Rusted bolts shimmered, bad welds lit up like they were embarrassed. With that, the city became a giant puzzle box, and I was the guy shaking it until prizes fell out. Sarah started paying me in food to secure storage runs. She did not come with me. She hated danger and said anyone who enjoyed it was either lying or Logan. Instead, she gave me lists and I gave her routes. We built a little business on cautious trust. Owen entered my life around then. He ran the safe house at the old courthouse, which was funny because the courthouse had no judges left, no lawyers, and one statue outside with a goblin nest in its lap. Owen was broad, tired, and patient, the kind of man who looked like he had spent his whole life stopping people from making bad decisions and had finally accepted that the supply was endless. Before the collapse, he had worked security at concerts. After the collapse, he became the person everyone brought problems to when the problems had knives. The courthouse had cells in the basement, real ones, thick bars, old locks. Owen used them for people who robbed survivors, hurt the weak, or tried to sell monster-tainted water as healing juice. He did not call himself a leader. He just stood between chaos and everyone else until people started lining up behind him. He did not trust me at first. "You set traps," he said, watching me tie bells to a tripwire near the courthouse entrance. "I set warnings. You set warnings that drop bricks. Only on repeat customers." He looked at me for a long time, then he said, "Don't drop bricks on people unless they earn it." That was the first rule Owen and I agreed on. The second rule came later, after a group of knife-happy thieves tried to ambush Sarah's supply team near an overpass. They were not monsters, that made them worse. Monsters followed hunger and patterns, people followed excuses. The thieves had been watching Sarah's pharmacy for days. They knew she stored potions, medicine, and food. They waited until her carriers passed under the overpass, then blocked both ends with cars and came out swinging knives like they were auditioning for a disaster. Sarah did not scream. She blew the whistle I had given her. 2 blocks away, I heard it. I was on a rooftop, eating cold beans with my fingers, because dignity had died somewhere between day 12 and day 15. The whistle cut through the air, 3 sharp bursts. My body moved before my fear caught up. I had prepared that overpass because Sarah's route was too obvious. On the underside of the bridge, I had tied 2 buckets of powdered concrete to a rope system. I had wedged loose bricks behind the guardrail. I had hidden a cheap monster lure in the trunk of a wrecked taxi, set to crack open when pulled. The thieves charged. I pulled the first rope. Concrete dust exploded down like gray fog. They coughed, cursed, and staggered. Sarah's team ducked behind a truck. I pulled the second rope, and the guardrail bricks spilled across the pavement. Not enough to kill, but enough to break momentum and ankles if they were stupid. They were stupid. Then I cracked the monster lure. Every horned rat within 2 blocks smelled it, and came pouring out of a subway grate like the world's ugliest parade. The thieves forgot Sarah and started running. I dropped from the overpass onto the hood of a car, pointed at the courthouse, and yelled, "The safe path is that way." They ran where I pointed because panic is the easiest leash. Owen was waiting with nets, clubs, and a look that said he had wanted a quiet afternoon and blamed me personally. The thieves stumbled into his trap line, got tangled, and were dragged into the courthouse basement before sunset. Nobody died. Sarah gave me a whole can of peaches. Owen gave me the second rule. If you're going to bait criminals into running, tell me before they arrive. Where's the fun in that? The fun is I don't punch you. Fair. By day 60, the city had ranks. Not formal leadership games. Nobody had time for speeches while bats the size of dogs nested in office towers, but people naturally sorted themselves. Fighters took front lines, crafters fixed weapons. Gatherers risked supply zones, watchers kept roofs clear. Owen's courthouse became the place people dragged problems. Sarah's pharmacy became the place people visited when problems dragged them. And I became the guy nobody understood. Logan had his own crew, because loud confidence attracts people who mistake volume for competence. He cleared low-level monster nests, bragged at night, and collected gear from daily rewards. By day 60, he had a curved sword, a reinforced coat, boots that made him faster, and enough potions to treat getting stabbed as an inconvenience. I had a slingshot made from exercise bands, a backpack full of stolen junk, and a login streak no one believed would matter. The mocking changed flavor. At first, people laughed because I looked weak. Then they laughed because they needed me to be wrong. Every day I kept the streak, I made their instant claims feel smaller. He had taken the bread, the knife, the potions, the easy road. I had taken hunger and turned it into a tower no one else could climb anymore. So they said I was lucky. Lucky the chandelier fell right. Lucky the rats chased the thieves. Lucky the slime stayed slow. Lucky the boss stepped under the sign. Lucky, 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 as if I was walking through the apocalypse with a rabbit foot the size of a tank. I loved that word. Lucky meant they were not learning. On day 72, Logan decided to prove I was a fraud. A new gate opened in the subway station under 7th Street. Gates were dungeon doors, circular cracks in the air that glowed different colors depending on danger. Green meant possible. Yellow meant stupid but survivable. Orange meant bring friends and prayers. Red meant write goodbye letters. This one was yellow, pulsing like a sick heartbeat. The system labeled it as a 3-hour nest. Logan announced he would clear it with 8 fighters. Then he pointed at me in front of everyone and said, "Dylan should come. He knows everything, right?" The crowd turned. He wanted me to refuse so he could laugh, or accept and die so he could laugh harder. Either way, he wanted the story to end with me smaller than him. I smiled. Sure. Yellow Gate swallowed us into a tunnel maze lit by blue mushrooms. The air smelled wet and metallic. Skittering echoed from every direction. Logan's fighters raised torches. I crouched and touched the floor. Trap Maker glowed. Hairline cracks spread under the stone, not random. The whole tunnel had pressure plates hidden under dust. The dungeon was not a nest, it was a mouth. Stop, I said. Logan kept walking. A spear shot from the wall and pinned his coat sleeve. He froze. I walked past him slowly, tapping the floor with a metal rod. Left tile is bad, right tile is worse. Middle tile is rude but negotiable. Are you guessing? One fighter whispered. Always. I guided them through the first tunnel without triggering anything else. Logan ripped his sleeve free and pretended he had meant to test it. Then the first wave came. Cave imps poured out of holes in the ceiling. Small, gray, too many teeth. They dropped onto shoulders and faces, clawing for eyes. Logan used heavy strike and turned one into paste. The others swarmed him. I threw a handful of shiny screws down a side passage. Imps loved shiny objects. Half the wave peeled away instantly, chasing the screws. The rest followed when I fired my slingshot at a mushroom cluster and sprayed blue spores across the tunnel. The spores made them sneeze. Sneezing imps could not bite. It was one of those facts nobody respected until it saved their face. We ran deeper. Dungeon boss was a centipede matriarch wrapped around a treasure chest. Its body filled the chamber in loops, armored plates scraping stone. Logan's plan was simple. Hit it hard until it stopped existing. That plan failed when the queen slapped him into a wall and sprayed acid across the floor. My plan was also simple, but funnier. The entire dungeon had been using pressure plates. The queen was too heavy to trigger them because its body moved around the edges of the chamber, avoiding the center. So I needed to insult it into stepping where it should not. I threw Logan's bent sword at its face. The sword bounced off and clanged against its eye ridge. The matriarch turned toward me. Everyone yelled. I ran across the chamber, stepping only on safe tiles I had memorized while pretending to panic. The queen lunged. Its front legs slammed onto the central plate. The floor opened. Not a pit, a crusher. 2 walls smashed inward with a sound like thunder biting rock. The matriarch's front half got flattened so hard acid shot out like a broken fountain. Back half thrashed, and Logan, because even an idiot can be useful with timing, used heavy strike on the cracked armor seam I pointed at. The boss collapsed. Treasure filled the chamber. Coins, potions, skill fragments, a ring that made the wearer resistant to poison. Logan grabbed the ring first and told everyone he deserved it. I did not argue. I was too busy prying a small black bead from the queen's crushed head. The system called it a dungeon seed. It was not flashy. It did not sparkle. It did not make me stronger right away. But it hummed when I held it, and the description said it could attract minor gates if planted in a corrupted zone. Logan saw a ring. I saw a fishing hook for dungeons. That was the difference between us. By day 100, I had planted the seed under the collapsed library. The library had become a dead zone after a slime flood dissolved half the first floor. Nobody went there because the air made your skin itch and the books whispered at night. Perfect place for a secret training ground. The seed took root in the basement archives and grew a tiny gate the size of a closet door. It opened once every 2 days and released weak monsters, not enough to threaten the city, just enough to grind. Just enough to test traps, just enough to turn hunger into numbers. I called it my gym. A terrible gym. Everything smelled like mildew and monster breath. The equipment tried to eat me, but it worked. Every 2 days, I fought alone. At first I used traps, then I used traps while running, then I used traps while blindfolded because one of the monsters spat ink, then I used no traps for 1 minute, then 2, then 5. I was still weaker than the fighters who claimed stat beads and weapon rewards every week, but my body learned timing. My hands learned calm. My feet learned how to step where death had just missed. The system rewarded effort slowly. Agility +1. Focus +1. Trap Maker rank 2. Improvised weapon mastery acquired. Improvised weapon mastery was exactly what it sounded like. If I picked up a chair leg, a frying pan, a broken umbrella, or a brick, the system stopped treating it like trash and started treating it like a weapon with bad self-esteem. Damage improved, balance corrected. Weak points showed longer. I became dangerous in the funniest way possible. Goblin charged me with a spear, and I beat it unconscious with a dictionary. A slime lunged, and I killed it by dropping a shelf of romance novels on its core. Moss Dog leapt through a window, and I shoved a globe into its mouth, spun it by the ears, and slammed it into a wall hard enough to learn geography. Was it elegant? No. Was it effective? Extremely. Sarah came to the library once, saw me using a broken office chair as a spinning weapon against 3 imps, and slowly backed away. "I'm raising your food prices," she said. "Why?" "Because whatever you're becoming is expensive." Owen came later not to watch me train but to ask for help. People were disappearing near the river district, not killed by monsters, taken. Their packs were found empty, bodies missing, shoes left behind like a warning. "Criminal crew?" I asked. "Looks like it." "How many?" "Unknowns." "Armed?" "Enough." "Stupid." He gave me a look. "That's your field." We found them 2 nights later. He had taken over a ferry terminal, using chain monsters as guard dogs and survivors as bait. The crew wore mismatched gear from daily rewards and dungeon drops. None of them mattered enough for names. They were the kind of people who discovered power and immediately used it to become worse versions of themselves. They caught travelers, stripped them, and forced them to lure monsters away from supply paths. Anyone who resisted got thrown into a storage room with a cracked gate that leaked insects the size of fists. Owen wanted to storm the place. I wanted them to confess to their own stupidity in a way everyone could see. So I became bait. I walked into the river district at dusk with an empty backpack, limping like I was hurt, muttering loudly about the potion stash I had hidden. The ferry crew found me within 5 minutes because greed has excellent hearing. 3 of them stepped out with knives. One had a fire spark skill and kept making tiny flames dance across his fingers like a street magician with moral damage. They surrounded me. I raised my hands. "Please don't rob me. I only have a map to Sarah's storage room." That was not true. Sarah would have hit me with the bat if I said that near her, but they believed it because evil people think everyone else is as cheap as they are. They dragged me into the terminal. Owen's watchers were on the roofs. Sarah was 3 blocks away with medical supplies and a scowl. I had 1 sharpened spoon hidden in my sleeve, 6 glass marbles in my pocket, and a rat lure under my tongue, which tasted exactly as bad as you are imagining. Inside, the ferry crew leader demanded the map. I gave him a folded paper covered in fake roots, real traps, and 1 very insulting drawing of a goblin wearing his hat. He did not notice the drawing. He noticed the red mark at the bottom labeled emergency stash. Then he ordered half his crew to follow it. That route led them through a maintenance hallway with wet floors, hanging wires, and 3 chained moss dogs who hated fire. The man with fire spark panicked first. Sparks flew. Dogs lunged. Chains snapped because I had filed the links earlier. The hallway became a concert of screaming, barking, slipping, and consequences. Meanwhile, I bit the rat lure. Horned rats came through the vents. The Ferry crew tried to fight both directions at once. I dropped my glass marbles across the tile and ducked behind a bench. People with knives discovered that balance is a privilege. Owen's team smashed through the front doors at the exact moment. The crew was falling, tripping, and getting chased by animals they had chained for intimidation. I used the spoon once. Not to stab anyone, I jammed it into the fire alarm panel and triggered every sprinkler in the building. The water hit the floor, the hanging wires sparked, and every criminal with metal boots learned a dance move called regret. By midnight, the ferry terminal was clear. The prisoners were freed. The crew was locked in the courthouse basement. Owen stood beside me in the rain, looking at the line of soaked criminals behind bars. "You enjoy this too much," he said. "I enjoy when people choose the trap themselves." "That's not better. It's a little better." Sarah handed me a dry blanket. "You had a rat lure in your mouth." "Only briefly. Never speak near my food again." By day 150, the joke stopped. Not because people liked me. People are complicated, not generous. Jokes stopped because every time someone called me useless, someone else remembered a time I had saved them with a shopping cart, a bucket, a rope, or a deeply offensive amount of glitter from a craft store. Yes, glitter. A flock of night bats once invaded the courthouse roof. Night bats tracked heat, sound, and motion, but their eyes hated reflective particles. I discovered this by accident when one chased me through a party supply shop and hit a wall after I kicked over a box of decorations. So when the flock came, I loaded leaf blowers with glitter, climbed onto the courthouse roof, and turned the night into a sparkling hurricane. Bats crashed into each other. Owen refused to speak to me for an hour because the entire courthouse looked like a birthday party had exploded. Sarah found glitter in her hair for 3 days. Logan called it childish until one bat dropped directly onto his head. The system gave me a title fragment. Absurd tactician. I treasured that more than any sword. But the world kept leveling too. The longer we survived, the more dangerous the zones became. Green gates faded, yellow gates became common. Orange gates started appearing near hospitals, schools, and train stations. Monsters grew smarter. Goblins learned to wear helmets. Slimes learned to hide their cores in trash. Moss dogs hunted in silence. Even the weak creatures began to feel like they were studying us back. People who claimed rewards every day kept pace. Their weapons improved. Their skills evolved. Their bodies strengthened through stat beads and potions. They looked like the heroes on the posters that used to hang in game stores. I looked like a guy who had robbed a junk drawer and lost a fight with laundry. But my streak window had become strange. At day 100, the blue color deepened. At day 120, the edges turned silver. At day 150, a faint sound appeared when it opened, like a bell ringing underwater. Day 150, reward available. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. Current combined value, unstable. Unstable. That word should have scared me. It made me smile. I was not waiting because I enjoyed suffering. I was waiting because every system has ladders, and most people climb the first rung they see. I want to know what happened if you refused the ladder until it had to become an elevator. Logan noticed too. He cornered me outside the mall with 3 of his crew behind him. He had upgraded his curved sword with a lightning edge. Blue sparks crawled along the blade. His coat had monster hide panels. His boots left faint wind trails when he moved. He looked impressive, which made his expression even uglier. "Show me your reward window," he said. "No, I said show me. And I gave you a beautiful answer." His jaw tightened. "People are saying your streak is special." People say lots of things. Yesterday someone said I fight like a raccoon with a grudge. That was me. It was accurate. He stepped closer. "When you finally open it, you're going to share." I laughed because I thought he was joking. He was not. That was when I understood something important about Logan. He had claimed every reward immediately because he could not stand waiting. But now that someone else's waiting might become valuable, he believed he deserved a piece, not because he had helped, not because he had understood. Because people like Logan see patience as weakness until it becomes treasure, then they call it unfair. "No," I said. His sword sparked. 3 months earlier that would have terrified me. Now I looked at his stance and saw habits. Left foot too far forward, heavy strike shoulder twitch, eyes always flicking to where he planned to swing. He was stronger than me by a lot, faster too. But he was readable. I tossed a coin at his face. He flinched. I ducked under the lightning slash, kicked a loose soda can into the path of his rear foot, and slapped a monster bait sticker onto his coat. Then I ran. He cursed and chased me right into the alley behind the mall, where I had built my favorite kind of trap, one that looked like garbage until gravity explained itself. His crew followed, the bait sticker cracked open. 2 moss dogs burst from a side street, not enough to kill, just enough to complicate everyone's schedule. Logan swung at them. His lightning blade hit the wet trash piles. Sparks jumped to the wire mesh I had hidden under the puddles. The alley flashed blue. Everyone froze in a full-body twitch. I was standing on a dry wooden pallet. "Careful," I said, "the floor is disappointed in you." Owen arrived because I had told one of his watchers Logan might try something dumb. Sarah arrived because she never missed a chance to watch Logan embarrass himself. Nobody got arrested that day because threatening someone was hard to prove when the threatened person had already electrocuted the evidence into slapstick. But Logan walked away with smoke rising from his boots and a promise in his eyes. He would come again. Good. People like him are safest when you know where they are looking. By day 200, the first orange gate opened near the stadium. The stadium had been a refuge early on, until flying monsters turned the open field into a buffet. Now it sat empty, lights flickering at night even though the power grid was dead. The orange gate appeared above the 50-yard line, spinning slowly, leaking red dust that made grass wither. The system warned everyone. Orange gate. Recommended party, 50 survivors. Collapse time, 48 hours. Failure effect, monster outbreak. The city went quiet. We had beaten yellow gates with injuries. Orange was different. If it collapsed, whatever lived inside would spill into the city and turn our safe zones into feeding grounds. Logan volunteered immediately, of course. He loved being seen volunteering almost as much as he loved not listening after. Owen organized fighters. Sarah prepared medicine. I prepared something better. A stadium is a trap pretending to be architecture. It has tunnels, gates, seats, maintenance rooms, cables, sprinklers, giant screens, sound systems, storage closets, ramps, and 1,000 ways to move people without them noticing they are being moved. Before the collapse, that was crowd control. After the collapse, it was a weapon waiting for a petty genius with too much string. For 6 hours, I mapped everything. For 6 more, I turned the stadium into a machine. I rigged speaker towers to blast predator calls from 3 directions. I filled concession hoses with slime-resistant foam. I mounted sharpened banner poles along tunnel exits. I tied nets between goalposts. I packed mascot costumes with monster bait and hung them from pulleys because I had learned, after much testing, that most dungeon beasts would attack anything vaguely human-shaped if it smelled afraid. Do not ask how I made the costumes smell afraid. Science has dark corners. When the raid team entered the orange gate, the inside looked like the stadium had been dragged underground and rebuilt by insects. Concrete tunnels twisted into chitin walls. The seats were replaced by rib-like balconies. The field had become a pit full of eggs. At the center slept the brood ram, a massive horned beast with 6 legs, a skull plate, and steam rolling from its nostrils. Smaller creatures crawled over its back, picking at armor plates. 50 survivors froze. Logan whispered, "We can take it." I whispered, "We are absolutely not taking it." The brood ram opened one eye. We ran. Not away in the correct direction. I had marked the safe tunnel with chalk only I could read because the lines looked random unless you knew they matched old stadium seat numbers. The brood creatures chased. The first wave hit the exit into the real stadium and saw the mascot costumes swinging over the field. They went insane. The speakers screamed with predator calls. The costumes zipped along pulleys. Foam exploded from hoses, turning the turf slick. Creatures charged, slipped, crashed, and slammed into banner poles. Survivors fired arrows, threw knives, used skills, and retreated exactly where I told them. For once, even Logan followed orders. The brood ram came last. It smashed through the gate exit and entered the stadium like a truck made of nightmares. Its horn tore through 3 rows of seats. Fire skills bounced off its skull plate. Heavy strike cracked one horn, but sent Logan flying. I had one move left. Above the stadium hung the giant display screen, already broken, already loose, weighing more than a monster's ego. I had spent 4 hours weakening its support cables and 1 hour praying nobody noticed. The brood ram charged me across the field. I stood on the team logo, holding a red flare. People screamed my name. At the last second, I dropped into the foam channel I had cut beneath a tarp. The ram thundered over me. I pulled the cable. The giant screen fell. It did not kill the ram. That would have been too easy. It pinned its back legs and cracked its armor. That was enough. 50 survivors attacked the exposed seams. Logan shattered the damaged horn. Sarah, who hated danger but hated dying more, threw acid jars from the sideline. Owen drove a metal pole into the knee joint while swearing with incredible creativity. I crawled out from under the tarp covered in foam and grass. The brood ram collapsed. The orange gate dissolved. For 10 seconds, nobody spoke. Then the stadium erupted. People cheered like the world had ended in reverse. The system rewarded everyone. Levels rose, skills evolved, loot dropped across the field. I received no daily reward. I had not touched the streak. But I received a new title. Stage Controller. When I returned to the courthouse that night, someone had written new words on the wall near the entrance. Dylan saves weird. I considered it a compliment. By day 250, my streak reward window had a warning mark. Day 250, reward available. Current combined value, beyond standard rank. Claiming may produce unpredictable reward. Unclaimed streak rewards may combine. People had stopped asking why I waited. Now they asked when I would open it. Sarah asked quietly while wrapping a cut on my arm, "Are you scared it might explode?" "Yes." "Are you going to claim it soon?" "No." "Because you're brave." "Because I'm greedy." She tied the bandage too tight on purpose. "At least you're honest." The truth was worse. I did not just want a powerful reward. I wanted a reward that changed the shape of the board. Everyone else had become better pieces. Stronger knights, sharper bishops, faster pawns. I wanted to pick up the board. But waiting was getting harder. Then monsters could smell weakness less and ambition more. Maybe that was superstition. Maybe we were all just tired. But whenever my streak window opened, nearby creatures seemed to twitch. Blue light reflected in broken windows. People watched like I was carrying a bomb made of breakfast. And the criminals watched too. After the ferry terminal, Owen's cells filled slowly, not with starving people who stole a can and cried afterward. Owen did not jail desperation. He jailed cruelty, people who hunted other survivors. People who burned shelters to steal supplies. People who used skills on the weak because monsters were too dangerous to bully. Most learned quickly that the courthouse was not worth testing. Some did not. The crew tried to break into Sarah's pharmacy during a storm. They expected guards. They found an empty front room, shelves full of labeled boxes, and a handwritten note that said, "Please steal the red crate first." They stole the red crate first. Inside was not medicine. It was 30 angry stink beetles from a dungeon nest, each one trapped in a jar with a cracked lid. When the crate moved, the jars opened. Stink beetles did not kill. They released a smell so powerful that even goblins chose personal growth and ran away. The crew stumbled out gagging, eyes watering, and crashed into Owen's people waiting in raincoats. Sarah watched from the roof with a cup of tea. I was across the street, wearing a gas mask I had modified with 3 coffee filters and a sock. Sarah yelled, "You are never putting bugs in my pharmacy again." I yelled back, "Then stop having such a robbable pharmacy." She threw a wet towel at me from the roof. It missed by 8 feet, but the intention was clear. Another crew tried to ambush me in the library. They had heard I had a secret dungeon seed and wanted it. They stepped through the front door and saw me sitting at a table, calmly eating noodles from a can. One of them said, "Hand over the seed." I said, "You made 3 mistakes." He laughed, "There are 5 of us and 1 of you." "That's the first one." They spread out. "The second mistake is standing on the carpet." They looked down. The carpet shifted, not because it was magical, because I had spent the afternoon hiding rolling pipes under it. 5 adults with weapons became 5 adults suddenly learning how difficult walking was when the floor had become soup. They fell into each other, knocked over shelves, and triggered the 3rd mistake. "You came during feeding time," I said. The closet gate opened behind them. Weak monsters poured out. Not enough to kill them, enough to make them scream, flee, trip again, and chase each other out of the library while I finished my noodles. Owen picked them up at the corner because I had sent him a note earlier that read, "5 idiots arriving soon, bring rope." He hated my notes. He kept all of them. By day 300, I was no longer weak. That did not mean I was strong in a simple way. I could not split boulders with my hand. I could not walk through fire. I could not stand in front of a boss and trade blows like Logan tried to do every week because apparently head injuries were his hobby. But I had levels, titles, and a body sharpened by doing everything the hard way. Improvised weapon mastery reached rank 5. Trap maker reached rank 4. Stage controller allowed me to sense how groups moved through a space, not perfectly, but enough to feel the rhythm of a battlefield like a song. Absurd tactician evolved into chaotic planner, which improved the effect of plans that used at least 3 unrelated objects. That last skill was personal. System saw me kill a dungeon brute with a mop, a piano wire, and a frozen burrito, and decided there had to be a category for that. I accepted. The stronger I became, the more Logan avoided me in public. He still hated me, but hatred had learned caution. His crew shrank because people prefer leaders who do not constantly end up covered in glitter, slime, or public embarrassment. He was still powerful. He had cleared gates, earned skills, and upgraded Heavy Strike into Thundercleave, but his story had stopped growing. Mine had not. Then the black train arrived. It rolled into the central station at midnight without tracks connected, without a driver, without sound. One moment the platform was empty. The next, the train was there, doors open, windows dark. The system marked it as an event dungeon. Midnight Express. Entry limit 20. Departure in 1 hour. Reward class advancement token. Failure passengers lost. Class advancement. Those words pulled every ambitious survivor out of bed. Classes were rare. A few people had earned them through quests or boss chests. Logan had been desperate for one. A class could define your future. Could turn a knife fighter into a blade dancer, a fire spark user into a flame caster, a trapper into something stranger. I wanted that token. Not for myself, not yet. My unclaimed streak was the spine of my build, and I was not going to let a class lock me into a shape before I saw what waited at day 365, but a token could be held, traded. Used later, or kept away from Logan, which was a public service. 20 of us entered. The train doors closed. Inside, the cars stretched farther than they should have, each one a different test. The first car filled with smoke and whispers, trying to make people panic. I crawled under the smoke because fear, like most things, rises when heated. The second car had invisible steps over a pit. Trap Maker showed faint stress lines in the air. The third car served food that smelled perfect and was absolutely bait. I watched Logan's hand hover over a steak, then slapped it away with a rolled magazine. He glared at me, I knew that. Your drool disagreed. The fourth car was where things turned cruel. It looked like an ordinary subway car, packed with shadow passengers. Not copies of me with thoughts, not anyone we knew, just faceless shapes sitting quietly, hands folded. The rule appeared above the door. Only the guilty may pass. Everyone froze because systems love vague threats and humans love making them worse. One fighter confessed to stealing food. The door did not open. Another confessed to abandoning someone during a monster attack. Still nothing. Logan said nothing, jaw tight. Shadows tilted their heads. I walked to the door and touched the frame. Trap Maker did not glow. Stage controller did. The guilty were not us. The passengers were. I picked up the emergency hammer and smashed the window beside the nearest shadow. The shape shrieked. The door lights flickered. Hit the passengers, I said. Everyone stared. They're the guilty. They're blocking the exit because they think we'll judge ourselves forever. Logan hesitated, which was funny because hitting things was his entire personality. I did not wait. I kicked a shadow in the chest and it burst into black dust. The others attacked. The car became chaos. Shadows clawed at us, whispering accusations, pulling memories out of our heads and throwing them into our ears. One hissed, "You let yourself starve for pride." I hit it with a handrail, for science. Another whispered, "You liked when they needed you." I broke its face with the emergency hammer, a little. The door opened. The final car was a narrow platform under a moonless sky. The class token floated above a conductor made of bones and ticket stubs. Its scissors clicked open and shut. It pointed at the 20 of us and demanded one champion. Logan stepped forward. So did I. He smiled finally. The platform sealed around us. No traps, no objects except the train railing, the conductor's hanging lantern, and the tracks below. Logan's lightning sword hummed. My weapon was a crowbar I had carried since day 90 because it had never betrayed me. The fight lasted longer than people expected and shorter than Logan wanted. He was faster, stronger, flashier. Thundercleave ripped blue arcs across the platform, slicing chunks from the railing. I dodged, rolled, and used the crowbar to redirect instead of block. Every hit I took numbed my arms. Every near miss burned my skin. He laughed while fighting, still running. Still missing. He roared and charged. That was his habit, always the same. Anger, forward step, shoulder drop, big swing. He wanted the clean hit that would end every argument anyone had ever had about us. I gave him the target. I slipped on purpose just enough to look desperate. His eyes lit up. Thundercleave came down. I hooked the crowbar under the conductor's lantern chain and yanked. The lantern swung between us. Logan's lightning blade hit it dead center. The lantern exploded with stored dungeon energy. Blue light swallowed the platform. Logan flew backward, crashed into the railing, and dropped to one knee, sword smoking. I did not attack him. I attacked the floor under him. The train platform was old wood pretending to be stone. Trapmaker had shown me that when his lightning cracked the surface, my crowbar punched through a weak seam, the board tilted. Logan slid, caught the railing, and hung above the tracks, eyes wide. I stood over him. Yield. He looked like he wanted to spit lightning at me. Then he looked down at the endless dark under the train. I yield, he said. The conductor clapped with bone fingers. Champion decided. The class advancement token floated into my hand. Logan climbed back up with help from 2 fighters and said nothing for the rest of the ride. That silence was sweeter than any daily bread would have been. When we returned to the city at dawn, everyone expected me to use the token. I placed it in a metal box and gave it to Sarah for storage. She blinked. You won a class advancement and you're not using it. Correct. I hate that I'm not surprised. Day 365 is close. And if your giant reward is a loaf of bread with a hat, then I'll eat the hat first. By day 330, the city started preparing for the anniversary. Not a celebration, more like everyone holding their breath at the same time. We had survived nearly a year under login windows, gates, monsters, events, and the constant pressure of becoming someone else before the world crushed us. Some people had built homes in office floors. Some planted gardens on rooftops. Children learned monster sounds before multiplication tables. The old life felt like a story someone had made up to make us sad. My streak became a legend before it became a reward. People brought guesses like offerings, a divine sword, a permanent class, a dragon pet, a city shield, a mountain of gold, a skill that could resurrect the dead. One kid guessed a sandwich so big it could block a street. I told him that was the best answer. Logan disappeared for 3 days. That worried me. And someone loud goes quiet. They are either learning or planning something stupid. Logan learning would have been more dangerous, so I assumed stupid. He returned with a new group, not his old crew. These were harder people, survivors from outside districts who had cleared gates and lost whatever softness they once carried. They moved carefully, spoke little, and watched exits. Logan had recruited them with promises he should not have been able to make. They did not attack me. They watched me. At the same time, more criminals tested the city's edges. Some came from broken suburbs, some from highway camps. They heard our courthouse had supplies, our pharmacy had medicine, and our fighters had advanced loot. They also heard we had rules, which made them laugh because cruel people always think rules are just weakness with better manners. Owen prepared defenses. I prepared invitations. We left certain routes open. We placed supplies where greedy eyes could see them. We let rumors leak about a hidden potion vault under the courthouse. The vault did exist. It contained empty bottles, sleeping gas mushrooms, and a floor coated in oil so thin you only noticed after your feet abandoned you. The first group broke in near dawn. They climbed through a basement window, followed my fake chalk marks, and entered the vault whispering like villains in a play. The door shut behind them because Owen pulled a lever upstairs. Sleeping gas puffed from the vents. Oil took their balance. Nets dropped. By breakfast, 12 criminals were snoring in a pile, tied like laundry. The second group tried the roof. I had painted a landing zone with bright arrows that said safe. It was not safe. It was a skylight covered with a thin tarp and powdered glue. They crashed through, landed in the old records room, and emerged looking like ghosts rolled in flour. Sarah laughed so hard she had to sit down. The third group was smarter. They ignored the bait routes and went for the water tanks. I respected that. Water wins wars faster than swords. They reached the roof at sunset and found me sitting on the tank with a cup of tea I had stolen from Sarah. Their leader raised a crossbow. Move. I looked at the crossbow, then at the 6 people behind him. You sure? He fired. The bolt hit my shoulder. Or it would have if I had been standing there. There was actually 5 feet left behind the tank ladder. The me on the tank was a scarecrow wearing my jacket, stuffed with straw and balanced with a mop handle. It fell dramatically, which I appreciated. The roof lights snapped on. Not electric lights, glow beetle jars, hundreds of them, all uncovered at once. The sudden brightness blinded the attackers. Owen's team rose from behind vents. I swung down from the ladder and kicked the crossbow out of the leader's hands. He tried to draw a knife. I threw my tea in his face. It was cold because I am not a monster. He still screamed because surprise is 90% of pain. By nightfall, the water tanks were safe, the attackers were jailed, and Sarah demanded I replace her tea. Add it to my tab, I said. You don't have a tab, I just like watching you panic. That's worse. She smiled, I learned from you. Day 360 arrived with thunder and no rain. My reward window opened at dawn and made everyone in the courthouse flinch. It no longer looked like a simple blue box. It was a tall silver gate of light, letters shifting across it faster than I could read. My unclaimed list had stopped showing individual items. Instead, it displayed one line. Combined streak reward forming. Streak value impossible chain. Claim available at day 365. 5 days. My body wanted to shake. I did not let it. Fear is allowed to sit in the room. It is not allowed to hold the steering wheel. Logan chose that day to move. Not with an army, not with a speech. He came alone, which almost made me respect him. I found him in the library basement, standing beside the dungeon seed. He had bypassed 3 traps, disabled 2 bells, and avoided the rolling pipe carpet. That meant he had either improved or hired someone clever enough to teach him. His lightning sword rested on his shoulder. I don't want to fight, he said. That's new. I want to make a deal. No, you didn't hear it. I heard enough. His fingers tightened on the sword. When you claim the reward, give me the first weapon you don't need. There may not be weapons. Then give me the token, the skill, the item, whatever makes sense. For you. For the city, he said, and even he seemed annoyed by how fake it sounded. I stepped closer. You had a year to build something besides yourself. I cleared gates. You chased applause. I saved people. When they were watching. His face darkened. You think you're better because you starved longer. No, I think I'm better because I learned while starving. That was the line that broke him. He moved fast. Thundercleave split the table behind me. I rolled under the next slash, grabbed the dungeon seed's old metal basin, and flipped it between us. Lightning hit the basin and rang like a temple bell. My arms went numb, but I stayed moving. The library basement was my home field. Every shelf had a purpose. Every floorboard had a note in my head. Logan chased me through the archives, sword flashing, thunder cracking stone. I led him past the history section and kicked a wedge loose. Shelves collapsed behind him, not onto him, around him. He cut through. I threw ink jars. He burned them. I dropped from a ladder and wrapped piano wire around his sword arm. He snapped it with raw strength. He was not the same fool from day 7. Good. A boring rival is just furniture. He cornered me near the closet gate. You can't trick me forever. No, I said, breathing hard, just long enough. The closet gate opened. A monster did not come out. A flood did. 2 days earlier, I had redirected a broken water line into the gate room because I was experimenting with slime behavior. The water blasted out at knee height and slammed into Logan from behind. He stumbled. His lightning sword touched the water. Electricity filled the room. I was already standing on a shelf. Logan convulsed and collapsed, smoking faintly, not dead, very angry and finally quiet. Owen arrived 5 minutes later because the alarm bells I had not disabled were the ones outside the basement. He looked at Logan, then at the flooded floor, then at me. Do I want to know? He slipped. Owen rubbed his face. Of course he did. Logan went into a courthouse cell for assault, not forever, not even close. Owen was fair, irritatingly fair, but the important part was not the sentence. The important part was everyone saw him dragged out of my library soaked, smoking, and defeated by plumbing. The legend grew teeth. On day 365, the city gathered without being asked. Dawn painted the broken skyline gold. People stood in the streets, on roofs, in windows, on the old courthouse steps. Sarah stood beside me with a backpack full of emergency supplies. Owen stood near the entrance with his arms crossed. Logan stood behind bars in the basement, which I knew because Owen refused to let him out for the show. That made the morning brighter. My window appeared. Not a box, not a gate. A pillar of light descended from the sky and wrapped around me. Every unclaimed reward I had refused for a year flashed in the air. Bread became knives. Knives became potions. Potions became skill boxes. Skill boxes became crystals. Crystals became wings of code. Thousands of tiny daily gifts spun together, faster and faster, until the light became a chain made of days. My knees nearly buckled. The system spoke inside my skull and above the city at the same time. Login streak reward has exceeded mortal rank. The crowd went silent. The chain tightened around my wrist. The light turned white. Streak reward cannot resolve into standard item. Streak reward cannot resolve into standard skill. Streak reward cannot resolve into standard class. Temporary mode granted. A new window opened. God mode trial, 24 hours. For one heartbeat, I forgot how to breathe. Then the world became editable. I do not mean I felt strong. Strong is a small word. I had felt strong when I dropped a screen on the brood ram. I had felt clever when criminals walked into my traps. This was different. This was like the city had turned into a drawing, and someone had handed me the pen while whispering, "Do not be boring." Every object had handles, every shadow had weight, every monster core burned like a tiny sun. I could see distances, angles, weak points, stored energy, hidden loot, sleeping gates, fear trails, hunger paths, and the exact number of loose bricks in a wall 2 streets away. The timer appeared in the corner of my vision. 23:59:59. Sarah whispered, "Dylan." I raised one hand. A blue apple appeared above my palm. Then 10 apples. Then 100. And 10,000 apples poured from the sky, bouncing across the courthouse steps, rolling down streets, filling buckets, smashing into helmets, and making a child laugh so hard he fell over. People screamed, then cheered, then started grabbing fruit like the apocalypse had become a parade. Sarah stared at me. I bit one apple, perfect, crisp, sweet, impossible. "I can duplicate things," I said. Owen picked up an apple and inspected it like it might file a complaint. Food first. Always. And I duplicated bread, not one loaf, streets of bread, towers of bread. A bread dragon coiled around the courthouse roof because I wanted to see if I could make one. It breathed steam and smelled like butter. It was not alive technically, but it did flap its wings once and knock Logan's cell window open with a roll. He shouted from below, "Are you serious?" I leaned over the courthouse roof. "I am extremely serious." The bread dragon dropped a bun through his window. God mode was ridiculous. So I became ridiculous on purpose. First hour was supplies. I duplicated clean water until every tank overflowed. I duplicated medicine from Sarah's best samples, carefully, because godlike power does not excuse poisoning people with enthusiasm. I duplicated blankets, boots, batteries, soap, rope, nails, glasses, canned food, sewing needles, cooking pots, and one rubber duck because a kid asked nicely, and because power without nonsense is just work. Sarah cried when her pharmacy shelves refilled. She tried to hide it by yelling at people to organize the medicine by label. I let her have that. Owen asked the question everyone was afraid to ask, "Can you make weapons?" I snapped my fingers. 1,000 training swords appeared in the courthouse yard, all blunt, balanced, and marked with safe runes. And I made real weapons, but locked them in stone pillars only Owen could open with the keys I shaped from his own courthouse badge. Not ceremony, not fancy rules, just trust carved into metal. "Why not hand them out?" someone asked. "Because free knives made everyone stupid on day 2, I said. "We are trying evolution, not a repeat performance." Second hour, I fixed walls. Not by building normally, that would have been offensive to the timer. I lifted broken cars into the air, squeezed them like clay, and turned them into silver barriers around the safe zones. I stretched concrete like warm taffy, smoothed roads, raised watchtowers, and pulled old streetlights from the ground to braid them into monster fences. I made gates that opened only from the inside, unless Owen touched them. I shaped rooftops into gardens with soil rich enough to make tomatoes feel ambitious. A flock of night bats came to investigate. I pointed at them. They froze in the air. Not died, froze, wings spread, eyes wide like ugly decorations. I duplicated tiny sunglasses and placed one pair on each bat. Then I rotated the whole flock and sent them gently toward the river district, where they decided the city was no longer worth the emotional cost. People cheered. The timer ticked. 22:03:12. Third hour, I went hunting. The city had nests we had avoided for months. Red basements, black tunnels, rooftop hives, submerged garages where pale things moved under the water. I could feel every monster like a note in a song. Some were simple hunger, some were territorial, some were old bosses waiting for weak prey. I flew. Not with wings at first. I simply decided the ground was optional, and the world agreed. Then I made wings anyway, because if you can fly without wings, that is efficient. But if you can fly with glowing wings made of broken traffic signs and blue fire, that is branding. I dropped into the subway where the horned rat brutes had nested. They were larger than cars now, fat with a year of fear, surrounded by thousands of smaller rats. Their eyes shone green in the dark. They roared when they saw me, and the tunnel shook. I opened my hand. A single apple fell. Every rat stared. Then I duplicated the apple into a rolling avalanche of fruit that blasted down the tunnel like a sweet red flood. Rats tumbled, squeaked, and got carried all the way into a containment pit I carved under the old station. I sealed the pit with transparent stone, added air holes, and created a sign that said, "Free Rat Zoo, do not feed fingers." Then I turned the rat brutes into harmless pets for 3 seconds, put tiny hats on them, took the hats back because that felt cruel, and sent them into a deep dungeon pocket where they could fight slimes forever and leave my city alone. Was that necessary? No. Was it satisfying? Absolutely. Next came the slime lake under the parking garage. For months, that place had eaten cars, weapons, and one very unlucky vending machine. I landed on the ceiling because the floor was a green ocean. Slime waves rose toward me, cores hidden deep. Before God mode, I would have needed chalk, bait, powder in 3 days. Now I clapped once. The slime froze into gelatin cubes. I arranged the cubes into a staircase, walked down, plucked the cores out one by one, and duplicated the clean gel into building material. Slime glass, flexible, strong, acid-resistant. Sarah later used it to seal medicine jars. Owen used it for cell windows. I used it to make a giant bouncing pad in the courthouse yard because morale mattered. Then came the rooftop hive. Thousands of wasp monsters burst from the hospital tower. Their stingers dripped venom. Their wings made a sound like knives whispering. I could have erased them. Instead, I remembered every person stung while trying to rescue medicine from that hospital. I remembered Sarah nearly losing 3 carriers. I remembered the months we spent avoiding that block. So I made the sky rain frogs. Not normal frogs, blue rubbery dungeon frogs that ate venom and burped bubbles. I made 10,000 of them. They bounced across the hospital roof, swallowed wasps whole, and belched soap bubbles the size of cars. The wasp queen emerged, furious, a gold-striped nightmare with a human-sized stinger. I put her in a bubble. She stabbed the inside. The bubble made a squeaky noise. I pushed the bubble across the skyline with one finger until it rolled into the river, where the frogs followed like a cheering army. The city watched from rooftops. Some people prayed, some laughed, some just pointed with their mouths open. The timer ticked. 2041-07. 4th hour, I opened every small gate in the city at once. This was stupid. I knew it was stupid. I did it anyway because God mode turned stupid into a tool if you held it correctly. Small gates had been popping up for months, leaking monsters, blocking streets, forcing people to waste time clearing them one by one. If I chased them normally, I would lose hours. So I stood on top of the stadium, spread my arms, and pulled. Every green and yellow gate shuddered. And they ripped free from buildings, alleys, basements, and tunnels, flying into the sky like glowing coins caught in a storm. People screamed as portals sailed overhead. Monsters fell out midair, confused, then froze because I told gravity to wait its turn. I stacked the gates above the stadium. 137 portals spun in a tower of light. Then I made copies of myself. Not living clones with opinions. I did not need that problem. They were action echoes, temporary shadows made of my movement and intent. Each echo held a different improvised weapon because I respected my roots. One had a frying pan, one had a traffic cone, one had a broom, one had a stop sign, one had a rubber duck, which I admit was not optimal but looked confident. The echoes jumped into the gates. For 3 minutes, the sky became a recap of violence, so absurd nobody could describe it without sounding drunk. A broom echo swept goblins into pits. A frying pan echo launched imps like pancakes. A traffic cone echo trapped a dungeon wolf's head and rode it down a staircase. The rubber duck echo did nothing until a boss swallowed it, then expanded into a duck-shaped balloon and plugged the monster's throat. Gate after gate collapsed. Loot rained into the stadium field. Coins, cores, skill stones, armor plates, herbs, crystals, and one angry chicken that apparently counted as a summoned familiar. I duplicated baskets to catch everything. Then I assigned sorting golems made from folding chairs. The folding chair golems were terrible at sorting. They were excellent at slapping anyone who tried to steal. Owen looked at the field of loot, then at me floating above it. How much of this is safe? About 80%. And the other 20. Educational. Dylan. I'll label it. He did not like that answer, but he liked the loot. 5th hour, I handled Logan. Not because he was the biggest problem anymore, because unfinished pride has a way of growing mold if you leave it in a cell too long. I walked into the courthouse basement. Logan sat on the bench, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. The bun from the bread dragon sat untouched beside him. When he saw me glowing with stolen daylight, his expression twisted through anger, envy, fear, and something almost like regret. "You got it," he said. "I did. 24 hours. Less now." He laughed once bitter, "So you came to brag." "No, I came to give you a choice." He looked up. I opened my hand. His lightning sword appeared there, repaired, cleaned, sharper than before, but sealed in a band of blue light. "You can stay in this cell until Owen lets you out." When you do, you can either leave the city, or you can train under the people you used to insult. No crew, no threats, no demanding pieces of what other people earned. His eyes narrowed, and if I say no. I pointed at the wall. It turned transparent. Beyond it was an empty white room with a chair, a table, and a single slime cube bouncing in the corner, wearing a tiny judge wig I had made for no reason. That is the reflection room, I said. He stared. The what? You sit there and think about your choices while the slime stares at you. That's insane. The slime agrees. The slime bounced once. Logan looked at me like he wanted to laugh and hit me at the same time. You could kill me. I could turn your sword into a noodle and your boots into pigeons. Why not? Because I don't need you small to be tall. That landed harder than I expected. His jaw worked, but he said nothing. I placed the sealed sword outside his cell. When Owen says you've earned it, you get it back. Until then, enjoy the bun. As I walked out, he asked, quieter, was it worth it? I stopped. Hunger, the cold, the jokes, the night sleeping above streets full of teeth, the smell of slime and rust, the fear of being wrong every morning for a year. Yes, I said, but I wouldn't recommend it. 6th hour, the West District burned. Not because of me. A red gate had been growing there for 2 days, hidden behind smoke from old factory fires. We had planned to avoid it until after my reward, but red gates do not care about planning. At 18:02:44 on my timer, it cracked open. A red gate is not just stronger, it is meaner. It does not leak monsters, it pours intent. The air around it tasted like hot metal. Buildings bent inward, shadows crawled against the light. People in nearby shelters started walking toward it in a trance, drawn by some dungeon lure. I reached the district in one breath. The gate hovered above a factory yard full of rusted machines. From inside came a giant hand, black and burning, fingers digging into the ground. Then a head pushed through, horned and faceless, with a mouth full of orange light. The system labeled it Calamity Beast. Recommended response, evacuation. I left. Not because it was funny, because for a year every warning had told me to run, wait, hide, prepare, survive. For one day only, the warning could sit down and watch. The Calamity Beast pulled itself halfway out of the gate. I made myself bigger. Not giant exactly, giants are clumsy. I became a version of me scaled to the factory yard, with a coat made of night, boots planted in the street, and glowing hands large enough to grab the beast by both horns. The city saw me rise above the rooftops, and the cheering died into stunned silence. The beast roared fire into my face. I inhaled it. Then I exhaled popcorn. Thousands of popped kernels blasted across the factory yard, burying smaller monsters, bouncing off walls, and confusing everyone, including me. Apparently God mode interpreted my thought of make this less dramatic in the dumbest possible way. Fine. I grabbed the Calamity Beast and suplexed it into the factory. The ground jumped. The beast tried to claw me. I duplicated its own shadow, twisted the shadow into chains and wrapped it around its arms. It strained, muscles burning. I pulled the red gate wider with one hand, saw the dungeon behind it, and realized the beast was only the doorman. Inside was a battlefield of ash with more beasts sleeping in trenches. I had a choice. Seal the gate and leave the dungeon for later, or spend time clearing something even God mode labeled dangerous. The timer ticked. 17:49:10. I smiled. Later is for people without glowing wings. I dove through the red gate. The ash battlefield stretched under a red sky. Calamity beasts rose from trenches, dozens of them, each one big enough to break a building. They turned toward me, mouths glowing. I split into 50 action echoes. Then I duplicated the factory. Not the whole factory, just pieces of it. Gears, pipes, chains, cranes, tanks, metal beams. I dropped industrial nonsense from the sky like a storm designed by an angry mechanic. Echoes rode falling cranes into beast skulls. Chains wrapped horns. Pipes became javelins. Gears rolled across the battlefield, cutting trenches. One echo drove a forklift straight into a beast's knee while wearing a hard hat because safety matters. I found the dungeon core under a mountain of ash. It was huge, pulsing red, guarded by a beast with 4 arms and a jagged bone halo. Not a ruler, not anything special, just a big monster with dramatic head decoration. It raised all 4 arms, gathering fire. I raised one finger. A tiny rubber duck appeared on its head. The beast paused. I enlarged the duck until it became a yellow meteor and smashed the monster flat. Then I punched the core. The first hit cracked it. The second hit showed me every survivor who would have died if the gate collapsed. The third hit shattered the red sky. I came out of the gate carrying the broken core over my shoulder like a trophy too heavy for physics. The red gate dissolved behind me. The West District fire went out, not because I extinguished it, but because I told the smoke to become rain and the rain listened. People came out of shelters. One little kid pointed at the core and asked if it was candy. I said spicy candy. Sarah appeared out of nowhere and hit my arm. Do not tell children dungeon cores are candy. I said spicy. That makes it worse. 7th hour, I learned God mode had limits. Not the obvious ones. I could still fly, duplicate, reshape, freeze, smash, heal, and make frogs rain from morally questionable clouds, but every major action left a faint crack in the light around my wrist. The chain reward was burning itself. Temporary meant temporary. Power like this did not drain slowly. It chewed through the impossible value I had saved and laughed while doing it. The timer showed 16:58:22. But the chain flickered. Sarah noticed, of course she did. You're overusing it. That's the point. No, the point is doing enough and surviving the end. I looked across the city, walls rising, monsters gone from whole districts, food stores filling, people alive. Then beyond the skyline, gates still pulsed in the distance. Other districts, other survivors. Other threats waiting for my timer to hit 0. Enough is a coward's word, I said. She grabbed my sleeve, and for once there was no joke in her face. Dylan. That stopped me more than any boss roar. I had spent a year being the guy who refused the easy button. Now I had the biggest button in existence, and I was slamming it like Logan with a sword. The irony was rude. So I changed tactics. God mode was not just power, it was information. It showed me where small actions could become large results. I did not need to erase every threat. I needed to arrange the city so threats erased themselves. That was my real build. Not God, not fighter, not hero. Trap maker. I returned to the stadium and built the grandest trap of my life. I called it the Monster Court because Owen threatened to quit if I called it anything involving slime judges. Monster Court was a massive circular arena beneath the stadium, carved with channels, movable walls, pressure plates, lure vents, sound towers, and containment gates. It could draw wandering monsters from miles away using controlled scent pulses, split them by size, weaken them with terrain, and deliver them into safe kill zones where trained fighters could gain experience without being slaughtered. It was not automated murder. It was a training ground, a defense system, and a city heartbeat. I powered it with pieces of the red core, slime glass, and hundreds of gate fragments from the stadium loot storm. I duplicated materials, but the design was mine. God mode helped my hands move faster. My brain did the cruel little maths. Owen watched the walls shift into place. This is terrifying. Thank you. That was not praise. I'm taking it. Sarah walked through the medical wing I added beside it. You built recovery rooms. I contain multitudes. You built one room labeled dramatic fainting. For morale. First test happened immediately because the lure vents attracted a pack of iron boars from the East Market. Iron boars had metal tusks, bad tempers, and no appreciation for architecture. They charged into the outer ring, hit the slick floor, slid through a foam channel, bounced off slime glass, and landed in separate pens where fighters could take them down one at a time. Nobody died. 3 people leveled. One boar somehow ended up in the snack storage and ate 200 apples before falling asleep. I considered that a design flaw. Sarah considered it theft. Owen considered it Tuesday. 8th hour, I made the city beautiful. That sounds soft, but beauty matters when everyone has been living inside fear for a year. Safe walls are not enough. Food is not enough. People need proof that life is more than not dying. So I cleaned the streets. Not with a broom. With a wave of my hand, I lifted every broken bottle, every rusted nail, every monster bone, every burned sign, every dead car that could not be reused. I sorted them into piles that made engineers cry with joy. I washed buildings with floating sheets of water. I repaired windows with slime glass. I made murals appear on blank walls, not perfect ones, just color, movement, silly scenes of frogs eating wasps and a bread dragon coiled around the courthouse. Someone painted my face on a wall. I immediately changed it to a raccoon holding a crowbar. Much better. I rebuilt the old park with fruit trees, clean benches, and a pond that filtered water through blue reeds. I made a playground with soft landing pads and a slide shaped like a sleeping dragon. Then I created a tiny dungeon puzzle room for kids with foam monsters and safe treasure chests because children in our city knew too much about running and not enough about winning. A girl beat the puzzle in 6 minutes by stacking foam monsters into a ladder. I gave her a medal that said Future Menace. She wore it proudly. The timer ticked. 14:22:03. Ninth hour, I flew beyond our district. The city was bigger than the safe zones we controlled. Other groups survived in towers, schools, warehouses, rooftops. Some were decent, some were desperate, some were dangerous. I could not personally save everyone forever, but I could clear roads, remove nests, and punish the worst people before my timer ended. I found a group trapped in a hotel surrounded by bone wolves. They had been throwing furniture down to keep the wolves back. I landed between the pack and the lobby doors, wearing sunglasses because I had decided all dramatic rescues required accessories. The wolves charged. I turned the pavement into a treadmill. They ran in place, confused, legs blurring. I placed bowls of duplicated meat behind them. The treadmill gently rotated the pack into a fenced zone where I marked them for later relocation. The hotel survivors stared at me like I was a weather event. One man asked, "Are you an angel?" "No," I said, "angels dress better." I cleared the road to our city, gave them supplies, and told them to head to Owen's courthouse if they wanted rules, food, and occasional nonsense. Then I found a warehouse controlled by cruel people. He had built a toll line across a bridge and forced survivors to pay with food, gear, or labor to pass. Those who could not pay got pushed back toward monster zones. They had skills, crossbows, and enough stolen armor to feel brave. Again, none of them earned names. I landed in front of the bridge. Their leader pointed a spear at me. Toll. I looked at the line of hungry people behind me, then at the stolen food stacked under tarps. You charge people to cross. That's how things work now. Interesting. He smiled. You got payment. I duplicated a single copper shard into a mountain of copper that buried his feet. Then I duplicated the mountain again. Copper poured across the bridge like a metal flood. His crew screamed as coins rose to their knees, waists, chests. I froze the coins around them, leaving their heads out like angry statues. The people waiting in line started laughing. I walked up to the leader. Congratulations, you are rich. He cursed. I lifted the entire bridge toll stash into the air, sorted stolen goods by owner using the memory residue God mode showed me, and returned food and gear to the people it had been taken from. Anything without an owner went into wagons headed for the courthouse. Then I carried the coin-trapped crew through the sky. Yes, all of them. 23 criminals, frozen in copper to their necks, floating behind me like the world's worst parade balloons. When I landed at Owen's courthouse, he was standing in the yard. He stared. I smiled. Delivery. He closed his eyes. Why are they in coins? They wanted tolls. That explains nothing and everything. He put them in cells after melting the coins off carefully. One tried to run. I turned his shoes into bread. He got 3 steps before pigeons made decisions for him. 10th hour, Logan asked to help. That surprised me enough that I almost dropped a tower. Owen brought him to the stadium under guard. Logan looked smaller without the sword, or maybe I was finally seeing him without the noise. He watched fighters train in the monster court, watched former victims become stronger, watched children run through the safe park outside. I can fight, he said. I know. Use me. I studied him. Why? He looked away, because sitting in a cell while you fix everything feels worse than losing. That sounds honest. It's all I've got. I could have said no, part of me wanted to. Petty is not evil when someone has earned it, but I had 24 hours of God mode and 1 year of proving people wrong. If I could turn junk into weapons, slimes into windows, and night bats into sunglass models, maybe I could turn Logan into something useful. I handed him a wooden training sword. He frowned seriously. Your lightning sword comes later. First, you listen. To the arena. Stage controller let me project battlefield rhythm into the monster court. I set Logan against 3 iron boars with the safety walls ready. He tried to overpower them and got launched into foam. He tried again and got launched harder. People watched, some laughed. He gritted his teeth. Stop trying to be the hit, I said. Be the reason the hit lands. He hated that sentence. Then he learned it. On the 5th run, he baited the first boar into the second, stepped aside, and used the wooden sword to guide the third into a wall, not brute force, timing. The arena rewarded him with a small glow. Heavy strike adjusted. Thundercleave stability increased. Logan stared at the message. I shrugged. Turns out the system likes growth. Disgusting, right? He almost smiled. Almost. 11th hour, the first distant survivor army arrived. Not an army in the formal sense. No flags, no thrones, no speeches, just a moving mass of people from the northern districts, hundreds of them, exhausted, wounded, chased by a wave of monsters. Behind them rolled a living sandstorm full of glasswing locusts and bone dogs, driven forward by something huge under the ground. Our watchtower bells rang. The city panicked for half a breath. Then they remembered I was still glowing. I flew to meet the swarm. Refugees saw me coming from the south like a comet with bad hair. Some fell to their knees, some just kept running because awe is nice but survival has legs. Monster waves stretched across 6 blocks, too many to kill one by one, too many to contain with normal walls. The underground thing cracked streets as it moved, a burrowing titan pushing the swarm ahead of it like a plow. I landed on an overpass and clapped twice. Every duplicated training soared and the city lifted into the air. Thousands of blunt swords rose above the walls, spun once and pointed north. I did not sharpen them. I did not need to. Momentum is a blade when applied rudely. The swords flew. They did not stab, they hammered. A storm of wooden and metal clubs slammed into locust wings, bone dog legs, monster skulls, knocking the front wave into piles without slicing the refugees. The sky filled with spinning weapons, returning to formation like angry birds. Then the burrowing titan surfaced. It was a worm the size of a subway train, plated with stone, mouth opening in 4 directions. The refugees screamed. The city walls trembled. I summoned the bread dragon. Because some problems demand symbolism. Bread dragon rose from the courthouse roof, larger than before, crust shining gold, steam wings spreading over the city. It was still not alive, but with God mode pushing it, it moved like a parade float possessed by breakfast. The titan lunged. The bread dragon body slammed it. The impact sent crumbs across 3 streets. The titan bit down and got a mouthful of enchanted sourdough dense enough to stop a truck. While it chewed in confusion, I flew above it, enlarged my crowbar to the size of a crane, and hooked it under the titan's chin. Open wide. I flipped the worm onto its back. The training sword struck its soft underside in a perfect wave. Logan, standing on the wall, used a stabilized thundercleave through the gap I created. The blue arc split the titan's core shell. Owen's fighters fired ballista bolts made from duplicated streetlights. Sarah's team pulled refugees inside the gates. The titan collapsed outside the city. I turned its shell into armor plates for the walls. Refugees came in crying, laughing, carrying children, dragging carts, holding each other like they expected the ground to vanish. We gave them food, water, medicine, space. Not enough space, but more than they had. A woman asked who led the city. Everyone pointed at Owen. Owen pointed at Sarah. Sarah pointed at me. I pointed at the bread dragon. The bread dragon shed crumbs with dignity. 12th hour, the timer hit halfway. 12:00:00. The light around my wrist cracked again. For 1 second, God mode flickered. Gravity remembered me. I dropped 20 feet before catching myself. Pain flashed through my knees when I landed. The crowd did not see because I was on a rooftop alone, but Sarah did. Somehow Sarah always appeared exactly when dignity needed privacy. "You're burning out," she said. "I'm fine. You just fell out of the sky. Strategic landing. You left a dent. The roof was weak." She handed me water, real water, not duplicated, from the first tank we had filled. I drank and tasted metal, dust, and ordinary life. It was better than God apples. "What happens when it ends?" she asked. "I become me again. And is me enough?" A year ago, that question would have cut me open. Now I looked at the city. Walls, food, arena, roads, loot sorted, monsters cleared, people training, criminals jailed, Logan learning to listen. Sarah's pharmacy overflowing. Owen's courthouse standing like an old stubborn tooth in the mouth of the world. "Yes," I said, "because I'm leaving myself tools." That became the rule for the second half. No more showing off unless showing off solved a problem or made children laugh, which I classified as infrastructure. Every action had to last beyond the timer. Every ridiculous trick had to leave a practical shadow. I made maps that updated once a day using wind, dust, and gate residue. I carved safe paths into roads with glowing stones. I built water filters from slime glass and reed roots. I created training manuals that moved like animated drawings, teaching people how to dodge, lure, flank, retreat, and not stand in obvious cursed circles. I duplicated enough basic tools to rebuild houses. Then I made one luxury. A movie screen in the stadium. For 1 hour that night, while I kept working in the sky, people watched old cartoons projected from a crystal I had shaped out of light. Kids laughed. Adults pretended they were only watching for the kids. Owen stood with his arms crossed and smiled when he thought nobody saw. Power that only wins fights is incomplete. 13th hour, the bridge criminals tried to escape. I had expected that. God mode made everything easier, but people still had to choose to be stupid. The coin crew in Owen's basement waited until guards changed shifts, then used a hidden skill to soften the cell lock. They crept through the corridor, whispering, grinning, thinking the glowing man was too busy saving the world to notice. I noticed. I had turned the basement hallway into a moral obstacle course. The first step triggered a polite bell. The second step released a rolling wall of pillows. They stumbled backward into a harmless slime floor, sank to their waists, and got carried gently into the reflection room, where the slime and the judge wig waited. The room door shut. A message appeared on the wall. Please consider why you are like this. Owen watched from the stairs, expression flat. You built that without telling me. I wanted it to be a surprise. For me or them. Yes. He sighed, but he did not dismantle it. 14th hour, I went underground. The subway network had always been the city's nightmare. Gates opened there more often. Monsters nested in tunnels. Strange sounds traveled through walls. People vanished near old platforms. We had cleared pieces, blocked others, and avoided the deepest lines because nobody wanted to fight in darkness where the map lied. God mode showed me the truth. Under the city was a root system of gates, small cracks feeding each other, forming a natural dungeon web, not targeting us, not reacting, just growing because the world had changed and magic loved empty places. If left alone, it would eventually produce more red gates. I could not destroy it all without collapsing the city. So I gardened it. I carved channels through the dungeon web, redirecting energy away from shelters and toward the monster court. I sealed cracks under homes. I opened controlled vents under abandoned zones. I planted pieces of the dungeon seed in safe containment rings, creating predictable training gates instead of random nightmares. The subway fought back with monsters, of course. Pale crawlers dropped from ceilings. Stone worms chewed through pillars. A blind serpent uncoiled from an old train tunnel and sang a note that made bones ache. I answered with music. I duplicated every broken speaker from the stadium, repaired them midair, and filled the tunnel with an upbeat pop song from before the collapse. The serpent's bone-hurting song fell out of rhythm. Its head tilted, confused. Then my action echoes came dancing down the tunnel with crowbars, mops, and one saxophone I absolutely did not know how to play, but used as a club anyway. We beat the serpent to the rhythm. When it collapsed, the system awarded me a skill stone. Subway conductor. I almost used it just for the joke, but I stored it instead. The clean tunnels became emergency routes. I made glowing signs, reinforced stairs, hidden supply caches, and doors that could be barred from either side. Then I took one old train, repaired it with God mode, and set it on a loop between safe stations. It did not need fuel. It ran on a red core fragment and spite. Sarah rode it once, stepped out, and said, "This is the most useful, insane thing you've done." Top 10, I said. Top 5. I'll take it. 15th hour, a dual challenge appeared. Not for me specifically, a natural event. A black circle opened above the old arena downtown, offering rewards to anyone who entered. Before God mode, people would have fought each other for prizes. Now I saw the challenge rules hanging in the air. Win streak arena. Participants fight summoned opponents. Reward improves with consecutive victories. Exit allowed between rounds. Perfect. I gathered the strongest volunteers, including Logan, Owen's best fighters, and several survivors from the northern group. Then I did something cruel. I did not fight for them. I sat in the stands, eating an apple, while they entered one by one. God mode could have cleared every round, but that would give them loot, not growth, so I used my power only to prevent death and adjust the arena when the summoned opponents were unfair. Everyone had to swing, dodge, bleed, and learn. Logan fought first. He faced a stone boxer with 4 arms. His old self would have tried to overpower it. Instead, he circled, baited, and used Thunder Cleave only when the boxer's feet crossed. He won in 7 minutes. The crowd cheered. He did not look at them first. He looked at me. I gave him a thumbs up. He rolled his eyes, but his shoulders loosened. Owen fought a chain brute and won by making it wrap its own legs. Sarah refused to enter until the arena offered a crafting trial instead, then destroyed a puzzle opponent by organizing its moving parts into a more efficient shape. The system seemed offended and rewarded her with Supply Master. She accepted with suspicious calm. When my turn came, the arena summoned a giant knight made of obsidian. I had no interest in a normal duel. I walked onto the sand, snapped my fingers, and turned the knight's sword into a bouquet of flowers. Then I duplicated myself into 12 judges, each holding scorecards. The knight stared at the flowers. I bowed. The judges gave me mixed scores, including one low number because I believed in honest criticism. The arena declared me winner by confusion. The crowd laughed so hard the black circle shook. I took the reward, a skill prism, and stored it with the class token. Future me would need choices. 16th hour, the weather broke. The sky had been wrong since the collapse. Too still some days, too loud others. Storms formed without clouds. Snow fell in one block while another burned. Weather had become another monster, less toothy but harder to punch. That evening, black rain began falling over the eastern shelters. Where it touched skin, it drained stamina. People stumbled, unable to stand. Monsters loved it. A pack of glass locusts dove into the rain and grew larger as they drank. I could have stopped the rain over one block. Instead, I climbed into the clouds. The storm above the city was a spinning wound, full of dark water and static. No boss, no villain, just corrupted weather fed by gate residue. I spread my hands and pulled every clean water tank reflection, every pond ripple, every window shine into the sky. The reflections became silver fish swimming through the clouds. Again, I do not know why fish. God mode had a sense of humor, or maybe I did. The silver fish ate the black rain from inside the storm. Lightning chased them. I flew through the clouds, catching bolts and tying them into knots. Below, people watched as the sky filled with glowing fish and tangled lightning ropes. When the storm tried to reform, I opened a pocket of clear air and placed a duplicated sun inside it. Not a real sun, a warm light sphere. Still, the clouds panicked like they had met management. The black rain evaporated. Clean rain fell instead, gentle and bright. The glass locusts lost their growth and dropped from the sky into nets I spread across rooftops. Their wings became crafting material. Their cores powered lanterns. Their legs, after careful testing, became crunchy snacks nobody admitted they liked. Sarah banned me from naming them. I named them anyway in my head. 17th hour, I made the vault. Not a money vault, not a secret treasure room for me. A survival vault under the courthouse, deep enough to withstand gate outbreaks, wide enough to shelter thousands, supplied with food, water, medicine, maps, weapons, tools, and training crystals. The entrance looked like an ordinary basement wall, unless you touched the right brick. Owen did not like hidden things. So I gave him the brick. He held it like it weighed more than stone. This is a lot of trust. You're annoying enough to deserve it. Thank you, I think. Vault took 1 hour to build because I refused to make it simple. I layered slime glass, monster shell, concrete, steel, and red core insulation. I carved air shafts disguised as broken chimneys. I set emergency exits under 3 buildings. I created storage shelves that expanded inward, not outward, because space was apparently negotiable during God mode, and I was not going to waste that. Inside the deepest room, I placed the things I had not used. The class advancement token. The skill prism. The subway conductor stone. Dungeon core shards. A copy of every safe map. A sealed lightning sword for Logan. A crowbar rack because tradition matters. Sarah looked at the rack and said, "Why are there 20 crowbars?" Culture. That explains your entire personality. 18th hour, the outside districts sent messengers. They came through roads I had cleared, carrying news like hot coals. South Bridge overrun, East School surrounded, Harbor Gate glowing orange, people trapped in an office tower. A hospital basement full of sleeping monsters starting to wake. The timer showed 6:03:55. Too many places, too little time. For a second, the old hunger came back, not for food, for enough. Enough time, enough power, enough hands, enough brain to solve everything. The world always had one more problem waiting behind the problem you just beat. So I stopped trying to be everywhere. I made everyone else faster. I duplicated the repaired subway train into 3 smaller lines and sent them along different routes. I made rescue carts that moved when you shouted the destination. I created flare stones that marked safe evac points. I gave Owen's teams temporary shield badges that could block one fatal hit and then shatter. I gave Sarah's med teams floating supply packs that followed voice commands and occasionally bumped into walls but meant well. Then I made action echoes for rescue, not combat. They flew out carrying stretchers, ropes, lights, and maps. They could not think deeply, but they could follow simple goals: carry wounded, block monsters, lift rubble, bring people home. Each one burned a small piece of my chain light. Sarah saw the cracks spreading up my wrist. Dylan. No speeches. I was going to say don't be an idiot. That's a speech from you. She swallowed the rest because she knew I was not stopping. I went south first. The bridge was held by a shell beast with cannons growing from its back. It fired bone spikes at anyone who approached. I landed on one spike midair, surfed it back toward the beast, and slapped a sticker on its shell that said return to sender. The next volley curved around and hit its own back. While it screamed, I turned the bridge cables into giant harp strings and played one awful note that shook its legs out from under it. Then east. The school was surrounded by chalk wraiths, thin monsters crawling across walls, stealing heat from classrooms. I duplicated every piece of chalk in the building, created a tornado of white dust, and wrote thousands of math problems in the air. The wraiths froze, compelled to solve them because dungeon wraiths apparently respected homework more than students did. While they suffered academically, the children escaped. Then harbor. The orange gate had opened inside a cargo ship, spilling crab monsters with anchor claws. I lifted the ship out of the water, shook it like a cereal box, and dumped the crabs into a giant pot I formed from dock steel. I did not cook them, I relocated most. One smaller crab stole my shoe and earned my respect. I named it Captain. Sarah said I was not allowed to keep a crab. She was not there, but I could feel her disapproval across the city. 19th hour, the tower fell. The office tower downtown had been leaning for months. When a gate opened inside its lower floors, the supports finally failed. Hundreds of people were inside, refugees who had sheltered there before reaching us. The tower began to collapse in slow, grinding stages, glass raining into the street. I arrived as the top floors tilted. For the first time in God mode, I was not early enough. The building was too damaged, too full, too unstable. If I froze it, people inside would be trapped in shifting concrete. If I lifted it, it might tear apart. If I reversed the fall, the gate inside would surge. I needed a trick. Not power, a trick. I touched the air and felt every person inside, every desk, wall, stairwell, beam, monster, and broken elevator. Stage controller, trap maker, chaotic planner, all the little skills I had earned while starving, woke under the godlight. A building is just a crowd of objects pretending to agree. I gave them a new agreement. Every desk became a sled, every door became a shield, every carpet became a slide, every window became a soft exit, every stairwell turned into a chute angled away from danger. I tilted gravity inside the tower room by room, not down, but sideways, guiding people out through glowing rescue paths. From outside, it looked like the tower vomited survivors. People slid from windows on carpets, rode desks down air ramps, floated in chairs wrapped in slime glass bubbles, and dropped onto giant cushions in the street. My rescue echoes caught children, pets, bags, and one angry man still holding a cup of coffee. Then the gate beast emerged from the lobby, a many-legged thing chewing support beams. I shrank it. Not enough to make it harmless, enough to make it deeply offended. It went from bus-sized to dog-sized and charged me with all the fury of a nightmare forced into a smaller apartment. I picked it up by the back of the neck and placed it in a hamster ball. The tower finally came down. I held the falling debris in the air long enough for the last survivor to slide out. Then I compressed the rubble into building blocks and stacked them neatly beside the street. People stared at the empty place where a tower had been. My wrist light cracked to the elbow. The timer showed 4:51:09. 20th hour, I stopped being funny. Not completely, I am still me, but the city had entered that strange silence after too many miracles, when people are grateful and terrified because they realize miracles end. I gathered Owen, Sarah, Logan, and the strongest fighters in the stadium. No speeches, no dramatic throne. I stood on the field where loot had rained and monsters had fallen, and I told them the truth. When the timer ends, I lose God mode. Nobody looked surprised. That made it harder. I don't know what stays, I don't know what breaks, so we prepare like everything I built remains useful, and nothing remains magical unless tested. Owen nodded, practical. Sarah crossed her arms, finally. Logan stood near the back, silent. I handed out roles, not titles. Owen kept defense. Sarah ran supplies and medical training. Logan trained strike teams under supervision, which made several people twitch, until I added that Owen could knock him unconscious for attitude. The northern survivors took responsibility for the new wall farms. The hotel group joined rescue operations. Nobody got a throne, nobody got a fancy chair. We had enough furniture. Then I opened the vault and showed them everything. The class token, the skill prism, the stones, the weapons, the maps, the emergency supplies, the monster court controls, the gate garden routes underground. People expected me to keep the best items. I picked up one crowbar. That's it, Sarah asked. For now, that crowbar is not even magical. I looked at it not with that attitude. Logan stepped forward. Why show us? Because if everything depends on me, I failed. He absorbed that like it hurt. Maybe it did. Before the clear gate appeared, I still had one problem nobody wanted to say out loud. The city was safe while I was glowing. That was the easiest kind of safe. Monster sees a man floating above the street with light leaking from his bones, 300 duplicated crowbars orbiting him like angry metal bees, and a bread dragon circling overhead with cinnamon breath. And even the dumbest creature develops sudden respect for personal boundaries. But when the timer hit 0, respect would start leaking out of people again. Cruel people have a strange relationship with mercy. They see it, enjoy it, survive because of it, and then convince themselves it means the merciful person is weak. I had just spent hours saving strangers, feeding children, fixing roads, moving monsters into cages, and turning storms into clean rain. Somewhere in that crowd, I knew a few rotten minds were already doing math. He is tired. He is busy. He cannot watch every street. When the light fades, we can take what he made. So before the final natural gate of the day, I built a lesson. Not a speech. Speeches slide off cruel people like rain off monster shell. I needed something more educational. I nutted Bates. I walked to the old market square with my cracked arm hidden under a sleeve and let the glow around me dim on purpose. I made my steps slower. I made my breathing sound rough. I even leaned on my crowbar like it was the only thing holding me upright. Sarah saw me from the pharmacy window and narrowed her eyes so hard I felt it hit the back of my head. I lifted one finger behind my back. Trust me. She did not look comforted. She looked like she was mentally preparing to throw a cabinet at me, but she stayed in place. Good. Owen understood faster. He moved guards off the square not far, just out of sight. Logan climbed onto a roof and pretended to inspect a ballista while clearly watching everything with the expression of a man waiting for either genius or property damage. Possibly both. I set a crate in the middle of the square. Inside it, I placed 3 things. 1 duplicated healing potion. 1 duplicated skill prism that looked real but was mostly colored light. 1 golden apple with a glow so dramatic it looked like it could cure sadness, grow hair, and explain taxes. People noticed instantly. Of course they did. The apocalypse had trained everybody to notice glowing objects. A glowing object could be food, danger, treasure, poison, or all 4 in a fun little bundle. The crowd formed at the edges of the square, whispering. I coughed once and made sure it sounded pathetic. That was when the greedy ones moved. Not monsters, worse, survivors with clean weapons, stolen bags, and smiles that showed no hunger, only appetite. They had been hiding among the refugees from the office tower, waiting for a chance to grab supplies and run. I had seen them earlier. They helped nobody during the evacuation. They carried empty sacks into shelter zones and came out with them suspiciously heavy. Now they saw me alone, tired and guarding treasure. Perfect. One of them stepped forward without a name worth remembering. You should rest. We can protect that crate for you. I looked up slowly. That is kind. He smiled wider. Behind him, 6 more spread through the crowd. Not armored knights, not dramatic villains, just ordinary cruel people with knives, rope, and the confidence of cockroaches in a dark kitchen. You have done enough, he said. Hand it over. I blinked at him, or... He sighed like I had disappointed him. Then he stabbed me. The knife hit my stomach, bent like soft candy, and sprang back into his face with a rubber squeak. For 1 beautiful second, nobody moved. Then the crate opened by itself. A tiny paper flag popped out. It said, "Thank you for choosing consequences." The square exploded into motion. Fake skill prism became a disco ball the size of a wagon and blasted spinning lights across the cobblestones. Every greedy survivor who had moved to attack me got marked with a glowing arrow over their head. The golden apple split into 200 smaller apples, each one sprouting little wings. They zipped around the square, smacking knives out of hands, tangling ropes, and bonking foreheads with crisp little thuds. The healing potion turned into pink foam. So much pink foam. Erupted from the crate in a fountain, swallowed the attackers to their necks, and carried them in a slow, embarrassing river toward the courthouse. The crowd parted, children cheered. Someone started clapping in rhythm as the foam parade drifted past. I walked beside it with my crowbar over one shoulder. The man who had stabbed me sputtered foam out of his mouth. You tricked us. You attacked a tired man in public for an apple, I said. I barely helped. Owen opened the courthouse door as the foam delivered them to the steps. He looked at me. I looked at him. He said, "Do I ask?" No. Are they injured? Only emotionally. Foam carried them straight down into the basement cells and folded itself into pillows behind them. The glowing arrows faded only after the bars locked. Then I turned to the watching crowd. No speech, just one sentence. If you want what we build, help build it. That landed harder than thunder. People looked at the courthouse. They looked at the new walls. They looked at the clean water tanks, the repaired roads, the food crates, the rescue carts, the children still eating apples. The rotten ones looked away first. The tired ones stood straighter. Lesson 1 complete. Then I ruined the seriousness by making the crate grow legs and dance back to the market stall. The city laughed, and that mattered too. Fear can stop a knife for a moment. Laughter can turn a crowd into people again. After that, I had Owen bring out everyone who wanted to fight but did not know how to start. Not the trained fighters, not Logan's lightning show-offs, regular people. The ones who had spent a year hiding behind doors, running from teeth, trading bread for safety, and thinking power was something other people had. I lined them up in the stadium. Then I gave each of them a weapon that looked ridiculous. Foam hammers, rubber spears, brooms with tiny flags, a frying pan that shouted encouragement every time it hit something. Logan stared at the weapons like I had insulted the entire concept of combat. Why, he asked. Because fear makes people stiff, I said. Nobody fights well while imagining their own funeral. They need to learn movement before terror. He looked at a grandmother holding a foam hammer bigger than her body. The hammer shouted, "Nice swing," before she even moved. Logan rubbed his face. I hate that this makes sense. Growth. I filled the arena with harmless slime balloons. They bounced, rolled, wobbled, and made rude noises when struck. Then I turned gravity slightly sideways, just enough that everyone had to adjust their footing. The first wave fell over immediately. People laughed. Then they got up. That was the point. The second wave learned to crouch. The third learned to move together. The fourth stopped swinging wildly and started trapping the slime balloons between them. I walked above the arena, correcting stances with floating chalk lines, duplicating shields when someone panicked, and dropping apples into open mouths like a sports drink company had gone insane. Sarah's medical team joined next. They learned how to drag someone without hurting them, how to wrap wounds while moving, how to duck when a monster tail swept low, how to spot poison foam, how to shout clear instructions instead of just screaming creatively. Owen's guards learned crowd movement. I made a fake evacuation with smoke, noise, and illusions of harmless monsters painted in bright colors. At first, everyone jammed at the exits. Then they learned lanes. They learned signals. They learned that a calm hand on a shoulder could move faster than a shove. I was not making warriors. I was making a city that would not fold the second I stopped shining. Then Logan asked for a real test. That was new. He came to me while the stadium was still echoing with laughter and slime noises, his lightning sword resting at his side. I need to know, he said. Know what? If I have actually changed, or if I am only behaving because you can drop a train on me. That was honest enough to hurt. I looked at his sword. Do you want me to fight you? No, I want you to set something I can fail. So I did. I built a tower in the center of the arena from broken cars, glass plates, monster bones, and one very confused vending machine. At the top, I placed a bell. Round the tower, I filled the air with obstacles, spinning boards, swinging ropes, harmless lightning rods, slime cannons, fake monsters, and floating signs that offered shortcuts. The shortcuts were traps. Obviously. I told Logan, reach the bell, do not use Thunder Cleave, do not break the tower, do not knock down any civilian dummies, do not accept any shortcut that looks too easy. He stared at the tower. The crowd stared at him. Old Logan would have cut through the first 5 obstacles and called the rubble victory. New Logan breathed once. Then he moved. He jumped onto a swinging rope, twisted around a slime blast, kicked off a car door, and almost grabbed the first glowing shortcut. His hand stopped 1 inch away. He saw the tiny grin I had carved into the sign. He cursed under his breath and took the longer route. The crowd cheered. Halfway up, the vending machine fired soda cans like cannonballs. Logan blocked 3 with his sword, caught 1, and threw it into a pressure plate that disabled 2 swinging boards. Smart, very smart, I almost clapped. Then I made the tower wobble. Not enough to drop him, enough to tempt him. The bell was close. 1 thunder cleave would launch him straight to the top. Everyone knew it. Logan knew it. His hand tightened around his sword. For a second, lightning crawled along the blade. Then it faded. He gritted his teeth, hooked his foot around a bone beam, and climbed like an ordinary exhausted human. When he rang the bell, the sound rolled over the stadium. No one laughed at him. That mattered. I floated down and handed him the sealed lightning sword from the vault, not the best weapon in the world, not a prize that made him better than everyone. Just a good weapon for a fighter who had finally learned that power is not permission to be stupid. He took it with both hands. "Do not make me regret that," I said. He glanced at the tower. "Do not build another vending machine that hates me." "No promises." Then the hospital alarm stone flashed red. I had almost forgotten the hospital basement. Almost. Earlier, the messengers had said monsters were sleeping there. Sleeping monsters are worse than active ones. Active monsters chase you. Sleeping monsters make you wonder what kind of nightmare needed a nap. The old hospital sat at the edge of the medical district, half collapsed, windows dark, emergency sign flickering even though the power grid had been dead for months. Sarah had wanted the building for supplies since day 40. Nobody could clear it safely. The basement breathed cold air that smelled like iron and old flowers. Now the sleepers were waking. Sarah was already moving before I spoke. "No," I said. She stopped so fast her boots scraped stone. "This is my job," she said. "It becomes your job after I make it survivable." She hated that answer because it was correct. I reached the hospital in one blink and landed on the ambulance bay roof. Beneath me, the building pulsed, not like a heart, like a throat swallowing slowly. The basement doors bulged outward. Something knocked from the other side. Once, twice, politely. That was never good. I opened the doors with one finger and dropped into darkness. The basement was larger than it should have been. Gate space had stretched it into a maze of operating rooms, supply halls, flooded laundry tunnels, and patient wards with beds on the ceiling. Hundreds of cocooned monsters hung from pipes, wrapped in gray silk. Their bodies twitched. Their eyelids opened one by one, revealing little blue flames. If they hatched naturally, the hospital would become a nest, and the medical district would be gone. I could burn them. Too risky, medicine upstairs, people nearby, unstable gate air. I could crush them. Messy poison sacks everywhere. I could teleport them. Maybe, but where? I did not have time to invent a monster vacation resort. So I did something much dumber. I became a lullaby. Not by singing, nobody deserved that. I grabbed every old heart monitor, every broken speaker, every elevator chime, every toy left in the pediatric ward, and repaired them with God mode. Then I copied Sarah's calm voice from memory, not her words, just the rhythm she used when people panicked. Soft, firm, annoyed at death for wasting time. The sound flowed through the basement. The monsters slowed. Their blue flame eyes dimmed. Then I added the pop song from the subway at 1% volume, because apparently I could not leave anything dignified. The cocoons stopped hatching. Good. Now I needed containment. I spun slime glass into tubes, built a conveyor under the floor, and gently lowered every cocoon into sealed pods. The pods slid through the basement like luggage at the world's worst airport. I sorted them by danger level using colored lights. Green for useful materials. Yellow for training monsters later. Red for do not open unless you enjoy screaming. One cocoon broke early. A long white creature unfolded from it, all elbows and teeth, moving backward and forward at the same time in a way eyes did not appreciate. It crawled across the ceiling toward the exit. I pointed my crowbar at it. Absolutely not. It hissed. I duplicated the crowbar into a ladder of crowbars, climbed the air, and slapped a patient wristband onto its neck. The wristband flashed. Current status needs rest. A hospital bed launched from the wall, tucked the monster under a blanket, and rolled it into a containment room. I stared at the bed. Sometimes even I did not know what I was building until it worked. By the time Sarah arrived with her team, the basement lights were on, the medicine storage was sealed clean, the sleeping monsters were sorted, and the most dangerous hallway had a sign that read, "Do not wake the noodles." She read it twice. Noodles. You had to be there. She walked past me into the supply room. Rows of medicine, bandages, surgical tools, clean sheets, batteries, and preserved food waited on restored shelves. Some of it was duplicated, some was real, all of it was usable. For once, Sarah did not scold me. She just touched one shelf like it might vanish. "This changes everything," she said. That was better than applause. I left before she could notice my hand shaking. The cracks had reached my shoulder. The timer showed 3:58:22. I had 4 hours left, and the city still had teeth around its edges. The next problem came from above. At first, people thought it was a cloud. Then the cloud blinked. A floating whale drifted over the western skyline, huge and pale, with a city bus hanging from one fin and glowing barnacles across its belly. It was not attacking. It was not roaring. just floated there, slowly opening its mouth above the farms I had built, inhaling wind, dust, and every loose object under it. Roof tiles lifted. Buckets rose. A screaming chicken flew backward into the sky. I caught the chicken first because priorities are important. Then I launched myself upward. Whale was a sky grazer, a dungeon creature that fed on open space and anything careless enough to be inside it. If it swallowed the farms, we would lose half the food I had made for winter. If I killed it over the city, it would fall like a mountain with opinions. So I needed to move it. I created a trail of glowing apples across the sky. The whale ignored them. Rude. I created a trail of glowing buses. The whale turned slightly. Interesting. I duplicated 20 abandoned buses, shrank them to toy size, filled them with wind crystals, and sent them spinning away from the city like a school of delicious metal fish. The whale followed, mouth wide. It almost worked. Then one of the barnacles on its belly opened and fired a beam of suction sideways, ripping a whole rooftop garden off a building. I shot down, caught the garden, folded it into a cube, put the cube in my pocket, and flew back up while the chicken I had saved perched on my shoulder like it had appointed itself supervisor. The whale inhaled again. This time it caught me. For 3 seconds I tumbled through the air toward its mouth, surrounded by roof tiles, buckets, apples, and one extremely calm broom. I could have blasted out. Instead, I let it swallow me. The inside of the whale was a floating junkyard with gravity in all directions. Cars drifted beside tree trunks. Stones orbited glowing stomach islands. Monster bones spun lazily around pockets of air. The bus hanging from its fin was actually inside and outside at the same time, which felt personally rude to geometry. At the center floated a blue stomach core, pulsing with suction magic. I grinned. Thank you for inviting me into the engine room. I touched the core and rewired the suction. Not stopped it, reversed it. The whale hiccuped. Everything it had swallowed shot out of its mouth in a glorious explosion of junk. I guided the debris into neat piles outside the west wall. The rooftop garden unfolded safely onto a new platform. Buckets landed in one stack. The screaming chicken, still on my shoulder, judged the whole operation silently. Then I turned the whale's suction into propulsion. It zoomed backward across the sky, eyes wide, making a sound like a confused foghorn. I followed it to the empty quarry beyond the city and built a giant floating pen from slime glass and wind chains. The whale bumped into it, bounced, and settled like an enormous pale balloon. The system rewarded me with a sky bladder. I refused to read the description. Some knowledge is a trap. Instead, I used the whale's harmless shed barnacles to make wind lifts across the city. Platforms that could raise supplies to rooftops, lower injured people safely, and make children scream with joy when Owen was not looking. Owen looked. He allowed 3 supervised joy screams per child. Progress. Then the jail bell rang. Not the soft bell from my trap crate, the real one. I returned to the courthouse and found Owen standing in front of the cells with his weapon drawn. The prisoners were not escaping. They were terrified. At the far end of the basement, one wall had cracked open. Behind it was a narrow tunnel none of us had seen, leading down into old utility lines. Something had crawled through, not from outside, but from below the courthouse. It was small. That made everyone more nervous. Big monsters announced themselves. Small monsters are either harmless or the reason a room becomes a memory. A little black beetle sat on the floor, polished like obsidian. It clicked its mandibles once. The prisoners pressed against the back wall. Then the beetle split into 10 beetles. Then 100. Then 1,000. Not shapeshifters, not people-shaped tricks, just a multiplying nest bug, the kind that turns food storage into dust and wooden doors into suggestions. They poured across the floor toward the vault wall. Owen said very calmly, "Dylan, I see them. Please do not make this funny." That was unfair pressure. I made it a little funny. I lifted every beetle into the air at once and trapped them inside transparent bubbles. The bubbles stacked into the shape of a giant hourglass. Then I created one enormous anteater made of foam, gave it glowing sunglasses, and let it vacuum the bubbles into a containment tank. The prisoners stared. Owen stared. The foam anteater burped. I said no promises. Beetles were not dead. Their shells were valuable. Their multiplication made them dangerous but useful if controlled. I sealed them in a farming box that produced 1 layer of shell flakes per day and nothing else. Then I repaired the cracked wall and traced the tunnel. It led to an old maintenance chamber under the courthouse. Inside, I found stolen supplies. Not from today, from weeks, months, hidden bags, food tins, water jars, medicine packs, monster cores, and weapons wrapped in cloth. Someone had been stealing before God mode. Someone had planned for the city to fail and wanted a private escape pile. The prisoners started shouting accusations immediately. Naturally, every guilty person pointed at someone else first. Owen's jaw tightened. Sarah arrived, saw the medicine, and became so quiet the room temperature dropped. Logan looked at the stolen weapons and then at the prisoners. Lightning flickered along his sleeve. I raised my hand. No guessing, I said. I touched the stolen supplies. Objects remember pressure, not like people, not with thoughts, but every hand leaves heat, oil, motion, tiny patterns. God mode let me read those patterns the way I read trap wires and monster paths. I followed the touches backward. Not with a speech, with light. Glowing handprints appeared on the stolen bags. Then the same prints appeared on 3 prisoners, 2 former guards, and 1 man standing in the watching crowd upstairs who immediately tried to run. My action echo dropped from the ceiling and caught him by the belt. He kicked, flailed, and shouted that it was not fair. I had him delivered gently into the foam river, which had apparently become a city tradition after 40 minutes. Owen looked tired in a way even God mode could not fix. These were ours, he said. Yes. They took from people who were starving. Yes. The room waited for me to turn them into furniture or launch them into the sky. I wanted to, a little. Instead, I did something better. I made them repair the damage where everyone could see. Not forever, not cruelty, consequence. Underguard with slime cuffs and shield badges that prevented violence, they carried the stolen supplies back through the square. Every item returned to a marked shelf. Every person they stole from received double from my remaining duplication light. The guilty ones had to face the line of people who had gone without because of them. No speeches from me. The city did the talking with its silence. When it was done, Owen took them back to the cells. Sarah touched my cracked arm before I could pull away. The light under my skin looked thin now, like a candle behind broken glass. Dylan, she said. I know. You keep saying that like knowing helps. It helps me ignore it accurately. She did not smile. That was how I knew the joke had failed. The timer showed 3:12:09. So I stopped wasting seconds on pretending I was fine. I went to the highest roof in the city and looked at everything at once. The walls, the farms, the hospital, the train lines, the monster court, the foam jail, the sky whale pen glowing faintly beyond the quarry, the bread dragon curled around a clock tower like a bakery nightmare. The market square full of people working instead of waiting. My power was absurd. But absurd power still had to choose. So I chose one last preparation before fate threw another gate at my face. I built a disaster rehearsal. The entire city heard the bell. Not an alarm, a training bell. 3 clear rings from every tower, every repaired speaker, every wind lift, every subway platform. A glowing message appeared in the air above the main roads. Practice emergency, move to nearest safe route, help someone slower than you. For 1 second, people froze. Then they moved. Not perfectly, not like trained soldiers in a clean movie. People bumped shoulders. Someone dropped a crate. A child cried. One man tried to bring a chair for reasons I still do not understand, but the roots held. The glowing stones pointed. The rescue carts rolled. The wind lifts carried supplies. The subway trains arrived. Sarah's team set up treatment points. Owen's guards guided crowds without shoving. Logan's fighters took roofs and watched for real danger. Then I added complications. A fake smoke cloud near the west gate. A harmless slime spill at the north stairs. A pretend monster roar from the subway. A blocked road made from foam bricks. People adapted. They rerouted, they called out, they carried strangers. The grandmother with the foam hammer smacked the slime spill out of the way like she had been waiting her whole life for that specific moment. The frying pan shouted, excellent violence. I decided not to question it. By the end of the rehearsal, thousands of people had reached shelters in under 12 minutes. 12 minutes. A year ago, we would have trampled each other for bread. Now a city could move like a living creature. I landed in the square, knees shaking so badly I had to use the crowbar again. This time it was not acting. Owen saw, Logan saw, Sarah definitely saw. I hated that. Then the crowd began to stomp. Not panic, rhythm. One person started it, then 10, then 100, then the whole square. Boots, sticks, hands, foam hammers, broom handles, all beating one steady sound into the street. They were not cheering for God mode. They were telling me they could stand. My throat tightened. So naturally, I ruined the emotion by making the bread dragon sneeze powdered sugar over the square. Children screamed with joy. Adults tried to pretend they were not catching sugar on their tongues. Owen closed his eyes like he was asking patience from whatever force handled difficult people. Sarah finally smiled. Small, quick, gone almost before it arrived. But I saw it. Worth it. Then the black pond appeared. It opened in the middle of an empty parking lot beyond the east wall, a circle of dark water with no reflection. No monster crawled out, no gate frame rose. It was just a pond where a pond had no business being, swallowing the moonlight above it. The system labeled it naturally. Depth event. That was all. I hated minimal descriptions. They always meant the danger had confidence. A group of evil survivors reached it before my patrols did. They had slipped out during the rehearsal, thinking everyone was distracted. Their plan was simple in the ugly way bad plans are simple. Grab whatever treasure appeared, flee through the broken highway, and come back later when my timer ended. I could have stopped them at the wall. I did not. Sometimes the best trap is letting someone finish the first half of their mistake. They gathered around the black pond, one threw in a rope, another dipped a knife. The water swallowed both without ripples. Then a silver chest rose from the center. I felt greed ignite from 2 blocks away. The chest was not treasure, it was bait from the depth event, a lure for anyone willing to step closer than wisdom allowed. The evil survivors moved at once. I landed behind them with my glow dimmed again. Careful, I said, that pond eats momentum. One turned, recognized me, and still smiled because my arm looked broken and the timer was low. You cannot jail everyone, he said. I looked at the pond, no, but water can help. They rushed me. Perfect. I stepped aside, not away from danger, toward the pond. Their leader swung a hooked blade at my neck. I ducked, tapped his wrist with the crowbar, and let his own force carry him past me. The black pond stretched like gum, grabbed his boots, and held him upside down 1 inch above the surface. He screamed. The others stopped. I smiled. Momentum, I reminded them. One fired a crossbow. I caught the bolt, duplicated it into 50 rubber bolts, and sent them bouncing through the group. Nobody died. Everyone got hit somewhere embarrassing. Another tried a fire skill. I opened a tiny window in the air, redirected the flame into the pond, and the black water burped smoke shaped like an angry duck. The silver chest opened. Inside was not gold. Inside was a mouth. The mouth lunged. I grabbed it by the lid, spun the chest over my head, and used it like a bucket to scoop up the entire black pond. The depth event resisted, pulling at space, trying to stay rooted. I planted my feet, cracked the parking lot beneath me, and lifted harder. For 1 second, the city saw me holding a pond in a chest, while several criminals hung from floating water strings like wet laundry. Then I slammed the chest shut. The system awarded me a depth box. I shook it. Something inside growled. No, I told it. The box stopped. I carried the soaked criminals back to Owen, still hanging upside down from strings of black water that refused to let go until I asked nicely. Their faces were pale. Their confidence had drowned without getting wet. Owen looked at the floating strings, alive. Yes. Humiliated. Deeply. Good. I placed the depth box in the vault, inside 3 layers of slime glass, under a note that said, "Do not open near people who make bad choices." Then I looked at the timer. 2:34:18. The glow around my shoulders snapped. Pain ran through me so hard the square vanished. For a second I was back under the bus shelter on day 1, rain in my hair, stomach tearing itself apart, bread hovering in front of me, everyone laughing because I would not press claim. I remembered every night I had slept hungry. Every rat trap. Every insult. Every time someone with a weapon told me patience was just weakness wearing a smarter shirt. Then I heard the city moving behind me. Not laughing. Working. That brought me back. I stood before anyone could catch me. Sarah was already there anyway. You are impossible, she said. That is my title now. Not a compliment. Still accurate. She shoved a bottle of water into my hand. Drink. I drank. Owen came next, carrying a list because of course he had found paper in the apocalypse and turned concern into organization. We have west shelters filled, north wall stable, hospital secured, prison doubled, supplies restored, and patrol routes active, he said. Great. There are still 3 minor monster pockets near the old mall. I hate malls. You hate everything with escalators. They know what they did. Logan stepped down from a roof. I can take a team. Old me would have said no. God mode me could clear the mall in 30 seconds with a tornado of shopping carts and self-folding mannequins. But future me would not have God mode. So I nodded. Take a team, I said. I will watch. Logan looked surprised, then serious, understood. We went to the old mall together. It had become a maze of broken glass, dead escalators, hanging banners, and vines glowing faintly from a gate crack in the food court. Monsters skittered inside the shops, small ones, fast ones. The annoying kind that leap from displays and bite fingers. Logan's team entered in formation. I floated above them, invisible to the monsters but not interfering. At first they moved too slow. Fear does that. It makes every shadow important. Then Logan raised one hand and used the signals we had practiced. 2 fighters went left, 1 marked the floor. Another carried a shield low. They trapped the first monster under a display rack and finished it cleanly. No thunder cleave. No showboating. Then the food court gate crack pulsed. A larger creature crawled out, made of tangled vines and plastic chairs, with a glowing sign stuck through its back. The sign still said fresh smoothies. The creature roared. I heard one fighter whisper, Dylan. I did not move. Logan glanced up. I shook my head. His jaw tightened. Then he smiled. Not arrogant, sharp. He pointed at the escalator. The team understood. 2 fighters lured the vine beast forward. 1 cut its chair legs. Another hooked a cable around its middle. Logan waited until it lunged, then used the dead escalator as a ramp, slid under the beast, and sliced the gate vine connecting it to the floor. The creature collapsed into plastic, leaves, and 1 surprisingly intact smoothie machine. The system rewarded the team with minor skill shards. They stared at them like sunrise. Logan looked up at me again. This time I clapped. The whole mall filled with duplicated clapping hands made of light, because I still had a reputation to maintain. He yelled, "Stop that." The clapping got louder. Growth should be celebrated. He cleared the mall without me throwing a single monster into space, which I considered personal development. Then I turned the food court into a ration station, repaired the smoothie machine, and created fruit packs from leftover apples because morale is easier when it tastes like mango. Sarah took 1 sip and looked betrayed by how good it was. Owen asked if the machine was safe. The machine said mostly. Owen walked away. The timer showed 1:48:06. Less than 2 hours. That was when the city started giving things back. Not rewards, not loot, people. A child brought me a drawing of the bread dragon fighting a storm cloud. The dragon had muscles for some reason. A cook handed me a wrapped sandwich made from real ingredients and told me not to duplicate it because effort mattered. The grandmother with the foam hammer gave me a button she had found and declared it lucky. One of Owen's guards, the same kind of guard who used to look at me like a problem, handed me a repaired strap for my crowbar. I accepted every ridiculous gift. Power had made people clap. Surviving without power had made them understand. For the first time all day, I let myself stand still. Only for 10 seconds. Then the world shook. A deep sound rolled under the streets, not an explosion, not a gate, not thunder. Something in the underground garden shifted. Channels I had carved were working, but one pressure not under the river district had swollen faster than expected. Not because of me, not because the system cared, just because unstable magic is rude. If it burst, it would flood 3 subway lines with wild monsters by morning. I had less than 2 hours to fix a problem that would matter after I became ordinary again. Perfect. I dove underground. The gate garden glowed beneath the city like roots made of colored glass. Safe vents hummed, sealed cracks pulsed gently. Training gates sat in containment rings, stable and predictable. Except one. Under the river district, a knot of orange light twisted around old pipes, chewing through stone. Tiny monsters leaked from it like sparks from a fire. They were not strong, but there were thousands, and by morning they would be everywhere. I could crush the knot. The street above would sink. I could redirect it. The river might boil. I could seal it. Pressure would build elsewhere. So I gave it a job. I built a wheel. A huge underground wheel of slime glass, monster shell, subway steel, and wind barnacles from the sky whale. I connected the orange knot to the wheel with channels thinner than hair. The wild energy poured in, furious and bright, and the wheel began to turn. Above ground, the old water pumps coughed. Then they moved. Clean water surged through pipes that had been dry for months. Lights flickered in 3 shelters. The subway signs glowed. The pressure not shrank, not destroyed, not angry, just busy. The city had its first real power source. I laughed in the dark so loudly, a pack of tiny spark monsters fled into a jar. Then I made 6 backup valves, because I had learned from every trap I had ever made that anything useful will absolutely betray you if given a chance. When I climbed back to the street, people were staring at the lamps. Actual lamps. Not magic balls floating in the air, because I felt dramatic. Real fixed lights connected to pipes and wires, and a dungeon energy wheel that hopefully would not explode unless someone ignored the 6 signs I had placed around it. The signs were very clear. One said, "Do not kick the glowing wheel." Another said, "Seriously." A third simply had Owen's angry face carved into it. That one would probably be most effective. The timer showed 1:09:44. 1 hour. The word hit harder than any monster. God mode had made me huge, bright, unstoppable, ridiculous, but the day was shrinking around me. Every remaining second had weight. Every choice meant abandoning 10 other choices. I wanted to fix everything. I wanted to duplicate enough food for years, build roads to every surviving district, clear every gate, jail every cruel person, teach every scared kid how to survive. And maybe create a second bread dragon, because the first one looked lonely. But wanting everything is how you waste the thing you have. So I picked the last normal task. The wall of names. Not a memorial of heroes or leaders, just a long stone wall near the courthouse, blank and clean, facing the morning sun. I carved the first names of the people we had lost when I knew them. For the ones nobody could name, I carved a mark shaped like a small flame. Too many marks, too many flames. The city went quiet as the names appeared. I did not make jokes. Some things deserve silence. Sarah stood beside me. Owen took off his gloves. Logan lowered his head. People came forward and added names, first names only, nicknames, tiny descriptions, the baker from the South Street, the kid with red shoes, the old man who fed pigeons, the woman who held the door. The brother who did not make it, the friend who laughed too loud. The wall filled. When it was done, I set a small light inside every carved flame, not bright, not flashy, just enough to glow at night. Power that only saves the living forgets why saving matters. I stepped back. My god light flickered. For one terrifying second, my hand became ordinary. Then the glow returned, weaker. The timer showed 0:52:31. Less than an hour. That was when the sky over the river bent. Not opened. Bent. Every instinct in my body lifted its head. The city lights hummed. The bread dragon stopped moving. The sky whale in the quarry turned toward the river. Even the foam anteater popped its head out of the courthouse basement and looked east. Logan gripped his new sword. Owen ordered people away from the river wall. Sarah grabbed my wrist, careful not to touch the cracks. "Tell me that is not another problem," she said. I watched the stars twist above the water. "It is another problem." "Of course it is." I smiled, but my mouth felt tired. The river went perfectly still. Then the final natural gate of the day opened. 21st hour, the last natural gate of the day opened. It was not red, it was clear. That was worse. The clear gate appeared above the river, almost invisible except for the way the stars bent through it. No warning color, no recommended party, no reward label, just a quiet oval of space humming like glass. People gathered at the river wall. I floated closer and felt cold slide through my god mode. Inside the gate was a garden of white trees under a black sky, no monsters visible, no treasure, no sound, but every instinct I had sharpened over the year screamed danger. The system gave one line. Unknown domain. Not a reaction to me, not a punishment, just something that existed, opening on its own schedule, as if the world had deeper rooms and we had only been surviving in the hallway. The timer showed 3:18:44. I could leave it, seal it from outside, mark it for later, that would be safe. Safe had never been my favorite word. Sarah grabbed my arm before I moved. "No." I didn't say anything. "You got that look." "What look?" "The look that gets buildings involved." Owen said, "Can you seal it?" "Yes." "Can you understand it first?" "Maybe." Logan surprised me, then "Don't go alone." I looked at him. He looked annoyed that he had said something decent. If you vanish, everyone gets dramatic. I hate dramatic. You love dramatic. I love winning, different. The clear gate pulsed. I made a compromise, rare, painful, mature. I sent one action echo through with a crowbar, a map crystal, and a rubber duck. The echo crossed the threshold and appeared inside the white garden. For 10 seconds, nothing happened. Then every tree turned toward it. Trees should not turn. The echo raised the rubber duck. The garden vanished. Not exploded, vanished. The entire domain went black and the echo's connection snapped. The clear gate flickered but stayed open. I sealed it immediately. Transparent stone folded around the gate in 12 layers. Red core chains wrapped it. Slime glass sealed the seams. I marked the river wall with every warning symbol I knew and 3 I invented. Then I placed a duck symbol at the center, because future me deserved context. Sarah exhaled, good choice. I hated it. That's how I know it was good. The sealed gate hummed softly. Part of me wanted to break it open right then. The stronger part counted the timer and walked away. 22nd hour, I slept for 9 minutes. Not by choice. I was reinforcing the north wall when the light around my body flickered and my vision folded inward. One moment I was shaping metal. Next, I was on the ground with Sarah kneeling beside me and Owen shouting orders like volume could intimidate exhaustion. God mode did not remove the cost, it delayed the bill. My body had starved, fought, run, bled, and refused comfort for a year. The trial poured impossible power through that body, but the vessel was still me. Clever, yes. Stubborn, yes. Dramatically underfed for several months, also yes. I woke after 9 minutes because Sarah slapped me. Was that medical? I asked. It was emotional. Effective. The timer showed 1:47:12. Panic tried to climb into my chest. I had lost 9 minutes. There were still too many tasks, too many edges, too many unknowns. Sarah held my face in both hands, which was alarming because she usually only touched people to bandage or threaten them. Listen, you already did more in 1 day than we did in a year. I can do more. I know that's the problem. Owen stood behind her, Logan too. People gathered along the wall, watching silently. For the first time since dawn, nobody asked me for anything. That almost broke me. Then a child ran up with the future menace medal around her neck and handed me a foam monster from the puzzle room. You forgot to make yourself one. I took it carefully. One what? A safe place. Ridiculous, brutal, correct. I put the foam monster in my pocket. Then I stood. Last hour, I said. 23rd hour, I made my backup. If God mode disappeared completely, I needed a way to keep one piece of the impossible chain alive, not the power. I knew better than to expect that, but maybe the pattern, the idea. The shape of delayed, rewards combining into something greater. I went to the library basement, where the dungeon seed had started my real climb. The room was dry now, repaired, shelves reinforced, gate contained. I placed my hand on the floor and poured a thin thread of God mode into the seed, the class token box, the skill prism, the crowbar, and my own titles. The system did not give me a free pass. It did not offer a secret permanent God mode. It did not wink or bargain or explain. Good, I was tired of Windows pretending to be fate. So I made something honest. A training path. The basement expanded into a challenge dungeon designed by my memories. Not lethal, not easy. It would teach hunger without starving anyone, patience without humiliating them, traps without cruelty, improvisation without despair. People could enter, face puzzles based on real survival situations, earn small rewards, and learn the lesson everyone had laughed at. Do not grab the first gift just because it glows. At the deepest room, I placed a simple message carved into stone. Use what you have, question what you are given, make the battlefield answer to you. Sarah read it and said, that's almost inspiring. I can make it worse. Please don't. I added a small raccoon symbol beneath it. Perfect. The path needed a guardian, not a monster, not a boss. I made a training echo of myself, weaker, sarcastic, holding a crowbar. It would teach by throwing harmless objects at people until they learned to duck. Sarah said it was too accurate. Owen said it needed safety rules. Logan asked if he could fight it. The echo hit Logan with a foam brick. I knew it would serve well. 24th hour, the final threat came from inside. Not betrayal, not a secret villain, something simpler and scarier. Fear. As the timer dropped under 30 minutes, people started panicking. Some thought the walls would vanish. Some thought duplicated food would rot. Some thought monsters would return all at once. Some grabbed supplies. Some argued, some cried. Miracles had made them feel safe too quickly, and the ending of a miracle felt like falling. I could have shouted. Instead, I used the last of my biggest spectacle. I rose above the courthouse with the bread dragon circling behind me, wings shedding warm crumbs into the dawn-dark air. The timer glowed where everyone could see it now. 00:29:58. My voice carried across the city, not booming, not godlike, just clear. I spent 1 year being called stupid for waiting. Some of you said it to my face. Some of you said it behind my back. Some of you were right to worry, and some of you were just hungry and scared. I was hungry and scared too. The streets quieted. I did not survive because I was chosen. I survived because I watched, learned, ran, hid, tricked, failed, and got back up with whatever garbage I could hold. Today gave me power. But the year gave me hands that knew what to do with it. The timer ticked. 00:23:11. The food is real, the walls are real. The trains, maps, vaults, filters, arena, roads, and gardens are real. Some magic may fade, some things may break, then we fix them. That is what people do when they stop waiting for perfect heroes. I pointed at the monster court. You will train. At the courthouse, you will protect each other. At the gardens, you will grow food. At the roads, you will bring others home if they come in peace. At the cells below, and if people choose cruelty, we will give them every chance to regret it safely. Owen muttered safely. The slime judge bounced in its room below as if summoned by destiny. I continued, I am not leaving, I am just losing the shiny part. Sarah looked up at me with wet eyes and an expression promising violence if I mentioned it later. Logan stood on the wall, holding his wooden training sword. He gave one small nod. The city breathed. 00:10:00. I used the last 10 minutes carefully. I stabilized the food stores, reinforced the vault, checked the sealed clear gate, fed Captain the Crab one duplicated fish because Sarah still could not stop me from a distance. Returned the sunglasses to the night bats because they had honestly earned them, made the bread dragon perch on the courthouse roof and shrink into a warm stone statue shaped like a loaf with wings. Then I went to the top of the courthouse, the same place where 1 year earlier I had closed the day one reward and made everyone laugh. Sarah stood beside me, Owen stood near the stairs. Logan waited a few steps away, not close enough to pretend we were friends, not far enough to pretend he did not care. The timer reached 1 minute. My body shook, the chain of light around my wrist cracked completely, white sparks drifted into the sky. I expected pain. I expected darkness. I expected the world to feel small again. At 10 seconds, my reward window opened one last time. God mode trial ending. Actions preserved were stable. Temporary authority removed. Streak concluded. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The light vanished. I fell to one knee. No wings, no object handles, no citywide senses, no God voice in my bones, just cold air, sore muscles, a ruined jacket, and the sound of people below holding their breath. Then the bread dragon statue sneezed crumbs. Everyone screamed. I looked up. The statue did not move again. It was just settling, probably, maybe. I decided not to investigate immediately because mystery is healthier in small doses. Sarah helped me stand. How do you feel? Like a raccoon fell off a church. Accurate. Owen looked over the edge of the roof. Walls are still there. Food too. Trains are running. Logan stared at the sky where my wings had been. Can you still fight? I picked up my crowbar. No glow, no God mode. Just weight, grip, memory. I spun it once. The system chimed. Improvised weapon mastery retained. Trap maker retained. Stage controller retained. Chaotic planner retained. New title acquired, impossible streak survivor. I smiled so hard it hurt. Then another message appeared. Due to streak conclusion, 1 residual reward remains. Claim now. Sarah saw my face change. What? A small blue box hovered before me, not silver, not godly, simple, almost shy. Residual reward, 1 impossible day condensed. Reward type unknown. Claim now. I laughed. Owen groaned, why are you laughing like that? Logan took 1 step back, smart. I looked at the claim button. After a year, my thumb no longer shook from hunger. After a day of God mode, my hand no longer reached for power like a starving dog. I had learned the shape of waiting. I had learned the danger of grabbing too fast. I had also learned that some doors are meant to open while the whole city watches. So I pressed claim. The blue box folded into a tiny key. Not golden, not flaming, just black metal, small enough to hide in my palm. Its teeth shifted slowly, forming and reforming like they were searching for a lock that had not decided what it was yet. The system spoke softly. Residual key acquired. Opens 1 sealed unknown domain. Single use. Everyone looked toward the river. The sealed clear gate hummed. Of course. For a long moment, nobody said anything. Then Sarah said no. Owen said absolutely not today. Logan said, I hate that I want to see what's inside. I closed my fist around the key. The city below was alive, food in storage, monsters contained, criminals jailed, children laughing in a safe park, fighters training in the monster court, trains moving underground. A year of suffering had become walls, tools, roots, and people who could stand without waiting for me to glow. That was enough for today. But beyond the river, inside that sealed clear gate, the white trees were waiting. And somewhere in my pocket, the foam monster from the future menace metal brushed against the key like a reminder. Make yourself a safe place. I looked at Sarah, then Owen, then Logan, and finally at the city that had once laughed at a starving man for refusing bread. Not today, I said. The key warmed in my hand. The clear gate answered with a sound like glass smiling. And for the first time since the daily rewards began, I did not feel hungry. I felt ready.